You're doing the right things. Like I love music. I just can't play it to save my life. Well, maybe I can if I put time into it. Maybe that's my biggest problem.
Just gotta try, man.
Yeah. But I love it. Music's such a cool thing for me. Yeah. It's very powerful.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Interviews with Everyday People. This is Anthony here with Nikolai, sitting down with the Collinses, Eddie and Eddie. Are you a junior and a senior?
Well, actually, I'm actually. Who are you?
I'm the third.
You're the third.
Yeah.
So
I'm a junior.
Okay.
Yeah, my father was senior, actually.
Okay, so you're ED3.
Yeah.
It's an RG3. Yeah. I'm actually a junior as well, so there's no third, but I didn't know the dynamic there. So now I know. A junior and so we have common ground. We're both juniors.
That's right.
And then you're by yourself as a third.
That's all right.
That'd be a cool ED3.
EC3?
EC3?
It's already used.
Yeah. Yeah. EC3.
Yeah.
You are EC3. Yeah. You need a t-shirt. If you come out with merch, I'm buying it for you.
He's got to have merch.
Well, if he ever gets on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a little bit of
that.
wrestling talk there. So yeah, I really want to appreciate you guys for coming in and sitting down and doing this. When I started this, I kind of had an idea in my head of people I wanted to do. And I always wanted to sit down and talk to you because you're huge into podcasts, and I thought you'd have been natural. And then I followed your dad on social media, and his stories that he posts are awesome. Yeah. I'm always looking into them, and I like the photos, and I like to kind of get some cool history and seeing some of the stuff he did. So I encourage a lot of people, if you're cool with it, to follow him on social media because his stories are awesome, and he has a really cool every day there's a little local history or music lesson.
Whenever I feel, man, whatever spirit's moving or what's happening, trending and stuff like that, elaborate on it and bring back some memories and educate other people like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. It's definitely I recommend it. It's fun. And then I seen you guys play the first time at the Greystone. And I was just I probably look like a weirdo because I was staring at your kit, and I don't know much about music. I'm slowly learning by helping with bands, but I was like, all right, he's got like a little piece there, and then he's sitting on a cajon, and the cajon. I was like, that is crazy. And then you're singing, and then you're have other stuff going on. You're like the guys who walk around amusement parks and they have 35 instruments hanging all over them. I was like, this is crazy, and it's. Three's a crowd. Three's a crowd. I always say Three's a company because of the movie or whatever.
That's close. We were trying to think of a three something, you know, but Three's a crowd came up and we said, that's it, man.
Yeah, Three's a crowd. Awesome. I have a blast every time I go there. Every time I see you guys, I try to get out there. I left Steve's house the one day and I was going out in the car and I'm listening because I'm going down to my car in the Greystone parking lot. I'm like, oh, that's you guys. And I walked in, I just kind of sat and I watched for a little bit.
We do have a distinctive sound.
You do, yeah. And I'm not sure the other gentlemen in the band.
Ed Moran and Bob Bellego.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Really good.
Me and those guys, we go back 40 years. I know Bobby since 1976. And Ed and I played the band called Rough Boy way back in 1980. Yeah. So we have a lot of history.
I definitely encourage people to go see it. It's a really, really good time. The music scene in our area is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. For being a small little coal town in Pennsylvania, it's insane the talent here.
Yeah, it's definitely on the up again.
It is
down for a little bit, but it's on the up again for sure.
It's just it's incredible. For the longest time, I'd say we're famed to claim was the Dorsey brothers. Right?
Yeah, Shenandoah. In Shenandoah area, they lived in Lansford a while, and so you had a lot of things that were happening here, and a lot of great people came out of this area, Tower City. You mentioned the Dorsey brothers, Les Brown was from Tower City, the big band there, a lot of stuff, and it blossomed in the 60s with The Other Side and Auburn, all this kind of great stuff that I grew up when I moved into this area, which we'll probably talk about a little later on. So it was kind of a late bloomer in Schuylkill County,
So. It just, the talent here is incredible, and now that there's more venues starting to let these bands kind of spread their wings and do their thing, and a lot of these, obviously the cover band talent is there, but then some of those bands and there's original bands that are coming out. For the longest time, we had two bands on the rise for a while there, and one, unfortunately, some things happened, it didn't work out, and then Crowbot came out, you had Cyanide and Crowbot. And I think, we talked about it in another show, the support system that band showed each other. It was like a friendly competition, but they still had each other's backs. So they did a good show. We got to do a better one. Then you had Faith in Exile at that point in time. Then they're coming back. So you had these three bands who showed each other that love and that support. And I think it bled. And strongly, I give a lot of credit with Crowbot because they always showed that love to other bands. And it's starting to show with other bands now in the area where other bands go see bands and support each other.
There's always been that support system, a camaraderie. I mean, everybody's, out for ourselves, but when it comes down to basics, we're all working together. And what I always say is, when you work with somebody on the way up, you're always going to work with them on the way back down too. So it's a revolving cycle. We play with this guy with this band. We play with this guy. 20 years later, we're coming back again. So we all intertwine, and we all got to support each other. If it's a brand new CD, whatever the case is, get on Facebook, man. Shout. Wish them well.
There's always a huge support system, especially with Cyanide and Crowbot. Because when I was playing with Cyanide at the time, that was when Crowbot was actually practicing in the Cyanide house. Yeah, like everyone was all together all the time. Everybody loved everyone. So
and just like I said, like it's insane now to think like that's a band now touring the country and they're from our area, and it's just but
it's a good feeling. I said to Eddie, with the whole Crowbot thing, while we're talking about that, it's probably about, I guess around 3 or 4 years ago is when the first time I ever heard Crowbot, and my son Chris was frontman for Tusco, and it was his first night singing, so I had to be there, man, to see this, because Chris was playing guitar and all this other stuff, but he said he was going to front Tusco, and I said, well, I'll come over to, I think it was Tussauds over in Port Carbon, and Crowbot was on the bill, and everybody's telling me about this band, and it takes a lot for me to be impressed. I'm a picky guy. I recognize talent when I see it, but when they took the stage, whatever minimal equipment was there, or whatever, and I saw what was in front of me, I was very taken. And I said to Eddie later, I said, these guys are going. I mean, I watched Brandon. Brandon's a great front man. I mean, he sings like Robert Plant. He's got the James Brown moves. He looks like he's back in 1968. These are all, cool things. The Led Zepp feel, the power trio. And as a unit, that's the first time I saw it, and I said, there's going to be big things happening, and now there is. Yeah.
The crazy thing I always say to people, like when I play them in like a jukebox, like if like, do you know there's a band in our area that's doing really well? I'm like, who? And I say Crowbot, and I go to a Touch Tones and I'll put them on because it's cool that they're there. And then and I said, it's crazy to even say this, but Brandon sounds better live than he even does on CD. Like it's a complete, like they're just how good they are. That's a big thing to me. If anyone can, like, not anyone, but a lot of artists with technology can sound good in the studio. And if you're good, they can make you even sound even better. But if you can show up to a show and you don't have the backtracking and you're just plugging in and playing, which Crowbot does, they get.
That's the real deal.
It's genuine, and it shines through.
And we were excited for them. We were doing our duo as the Collins Bunch a few years ago, and we were doing a gig at Trippin' Billy's, and I remember everybody was excited because they were waiting to see the big premiere on MTV. What show was that? The two guys that were... I can't remember.
Oh, is it that metal show?
Yeah,
VH1.
Yeah.
VH1
so everybody sat around the bar, and they held the CD up, and the whole place went ballistic. Man, it was great. It was a nice feeling. Somebody myself has been around a long time, saying, "Yeah, that's nice. Pottsville's on the map again."
Yeah, it's really cool. But so that kind of doing a little bit of what's going on with music now, I want to kind of rewind a little bit. Obviously, you music's been very passionate with you for a long time, correct?
A long time, 57 years.
57 years.
I just celebrated my 57th anniversary in October, matter of fact.
Awesome.
Made my first record on October 12th, 1962.
Wow. At the age of?
Age of 5.
Age of 5, you appeared on your first record.
Yes, indeed.
Now, was your parents into music as well, or was it how were you?
Looking back and the whole circle, the music came from my mother's family, and that dates back to my Uncle Joe, who I was told was a concert violinist who played at Carnegie Hall and played a lot of stuff like that in the late 1930s, early 40s. Then he was drafted into the war, and we lost him during World War II. I think he was a bomber pilot. But my Uncle Joe and my mom, she was like an aspiring singer. She had a great voice. She used to work at Mount Airy Lodge up in the Poconos back in the 1950s, and they would have like these little lounge bands. We called them combos back then, like 3-piece bands, and she'd get up and she would sing with them and stuff like that. But she never pursued it. She had a nice voice and all. But my uncle, who was her brother, my Uncle Jim, was kind of like my mentor. He was 14, 15 when rock and roll broke out, 1955, 1956. And he started writing songs, playing guitar and everything. So by the time I was born, Elvis was hot and everything, Jailhouse Rock. And he was really persistent, aggressive young kid that wanted to get into this business. So in around 1959, he wrote this song called "The Day Rock and Roll Dies." Now, what would happen if we lost Elvis, we lost Frankie Avalon, we lost Fats Domino, no more Frankie Avalon will croon for you, the kind of words like that, But in the seriousness of it, he was taking guitar lessons from a gal in Ridley Park, Pennsylvania by the name of Inez Ryan, and she wanted to manage him as well. She also managed a doo-wop group called the Lydells, a bunch of doo-wop singers. They had a record on the charts called The Wizard of Love, and they became pretty chummy and decided to book the Sound Plus Studios in Philly and record my uncle's song. So on October 12th of '62, he wanted me to walk in and do a little laughing track. Hey, the day the rock and roll dies. And then the band comes in. The CF minor, A and G or whatever, you know, rock and roll progression. And it was my first time in the studio. I saw the on-air light, you know, and the engineer would cue me, take one, Eddie, here's your lines, you know, the day rock and roll dies. And I actually have the session tapes. From the whole session, from the whole session, the outtakes and everything, me flubbing or whatever. And then we went back in March of 1963 to Reco Art Studios, which later became Sigma Sound, and we recorded in there. But that was my baptism of fire into music, and I loved it so much. That's where it kind of all started, you know, the first rock and roll, you know, recording session. And I knew I wanted to play, you know. When '64 came out, the Beatles, I was watching TV eating ice cream when they came on. And I knew I was, like, in the back of my mind, I was glued to, you know, Ringo and the band and everything, and I wanted to do something like this. Now, in the '60s, when you were at school, they always shunned away from the rock and roll instruments. Kid, you know, we'll give you a string instrument, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. So I was in, after we lived at Prospect Park, I moved to Philadelphia, and I was in 3rd grade. And even though I wanted the drums, well, I couldn't get the drums, but they wanted me to play keyboards. So the local music store came in, and I think it was like a Lowry keyboard dealer or something. But they weren't giving you a keyboard to play on. They gave you this book called The Pointer Method, and you opened it up and you took out this cardboard keyboard and you pointed to the keys. You know, I mean, this made no sense to me.
Because you're not hearing it.
I'm not hearing nothing. Nothing's happening, man. It's not cool, you know.
It's like playing air guitar.
So what can I get? What can I amuse myself with that makes noise? And I ended up playing cornet. It was just a smaller version of a trumpet. I got this cornet, and this thing must have been through World War I and II, because the thing had all kinds of dents and everything. The valves would stick and they wouldn't work. I wasn't happy at all. So we took it to this music store, Frankfurt Avenue, and we went to pick it up, and the gentleman told my mom that it was $35. We went home and told my father. He was ballistic, man. He went nuts. He couldn't believe it cost $35 to get this thing, you know, this thing. So that lasted for a while. But then when I moved to Hazleton in '66, Zazwith Music came through with their music program, and they had these big, beautiful saxophones, man. They opened them up. There was this purple plush material in there, big, shiny alto Bundy sax, you know, and I looked at it and I said, that's me. So we got this saxophone.
It's a cool instrument.
It was so, and I thought, this is cool, man. You know, I heard the saxophone on all the records, the rock and roll records in the 50s and 60s, and I could see myself with a nice tenor sax. But the problem was that we couldn't afford it. It was just too much. So about 3 months, I put the sax down. But I had drums between that time, because when I lived in Philadelphia, I had a shoe shine route at age 7, man. I was out street shining shoes, you know, like you hear, the shoe shine boy, you know. So I would go out every day after school and charge $15 for a shine. I go into the local bars, into the banks. I would stand around the banks because I knew the people were coming out of there, and they're businessmen. They're gonna have to get their shoes shine, you know. So I'd make some money doing that. I'd either buy model cars on the weekend, or I would go down to a variety store we had on Torresdale Avenue, which they had these drums, like the kiddie type of drums. They're with the hoops on the top and the springs, and like the paper type of you know, head on it, you know. So I would beat the heck out of them, and every time when I break them, I put some Scotch tape on it. It'd be cool for a while, you know, but it didn't last. But by 1966, I got my first upgraded kit. It was by Remco, and it was made out of cardboard, and they had plastic lugs. It was really cool. It was like a real kit, you know. I had this kit. It was lasted me for about a year or so, and then in 1968, I got my first set of drums, Slingerland, 3-piece Red Sparkle. Man, it was so thrilling to have that. I'll never forget on Christmas Day setting them all up and playing "Devil with the Blue Dress" by Mitch Ryder. Pop, pop, pop. You know, it was cool stuff. You know, but that's how I got started with the drums, and I couldn't leave it, because it took me over. I loved to sing, and at that time, you know, we didn't have MP3s, we didn't even have 8 tracks. We had record players. So I would take my record player in the attic with my drums, and practice and sing along to the records. That's why I got started with the vocal thing and stuff like that. And then by 1969, I got on my first talent show. My mom was like probably my first manager, promoter.
She saw this is like during like school time. Like
this is, I guess 1969. I would have been in sixth going to seventh grade. Yeah. And wore put my bell bottoms, my big elephant bells, and strolled up to the American Legion in Hazleton. And I was on the talent show.
Just as a one-man drummer?
They set me up. They let me do a solo. I can't even remember if it was Wipeout or whatever I played, but it was for like about 5 minutes or so. And then they must have saw something, because the house band, which was the band director from Hazleton High School, Joe Buglio, he had a trio there with him, with a drummer, who I later learned later on that he was a 12th grader at my high school.
Yeah.
But anyhow, the gentleman that played drums, the trumpet player, and there was a stand-up bass. So they actually had me sit in on a couple of tunes, man.
Nice.
It was really cool.
Now, did you take lessons, or were you self-taught?
I did take lessons. I was self-taught up until that point, okay? And it's ironic you bring that up, because from that, at the end of the performance, Mr. Joe Buglio took my mom aside. He said, Mrs. Collins, he said, this kid has a lot of talent, and he needs a good teacher as well. He said, I recommend to you Al Mumaw over in West Hazleton. And Al Mumaw was one of the most popular jazz drummers in the country. Matter of fact, he, in the 1950s, was regarded by Downbeat magazine as one of the top 10. And he had also played for Judy Garland. Remember, Over the Rainbow and The Wizard of Oz and all that stuff? Yeah, he played for Judy Garland for a long time. So I took lessons off of Al. And Al had a good method, because he didn't keep you bored. A lot of teachers would have the tried and true method. I did have a drum teacher before that. Matter of fact, I forgot, 1967. But I would sit there with the pad and the sticks, and just play the rudiments and whatever. But Al was cool, because he had me using a book was called Syncopation. And it was all jazz figures and double time stuff, paradiddles and all that. And what was cool is that he would put the record player on behind him, and he would set the record player, put a record on that I would play the measures that were set up to the groove on the record. Then I felt like I was accomplishing something, even though I was being rudimental. I was being schooled. I was following time. I was playing with a record, and it was cool. So I took lessons off Al for about 2 years, 1969 through 71. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was kind of the formative, stuff.
Now,
there.
you said you were heavily influeed by, obviously, the Beatles at first. Now, but at that point in time, was there any other drummers that you kind of got caught your eye? And then
Oh, definitely, man. Ringo set the tone for everybody. You have to understand, before the Beatles came, there was rock and roll music. There was Buddy Holly and the Crickets, and there were the Beach Boys and all that stuff. But there was never a self-contained band that had the persona, had the, like I say, the whole package. Like Crowbot, they've got the image, they've got the look, they got the, performance down and everything. But the Beatles set the tone, because, the music was there, the presentation, the look, the hair, all that was new, all was different. That's why, it was something else. We needed that. President Kennedy had died. Elvis was, got out of the army, and everything was kind of lame. So that's why when this whole British invasion stuff, and I grew up through all this. I mean, it was like just like something else. Anything that was a British invasion, you heard it on the radio. Any if it was the Zombies, the Yardbirds, and the girls would go crazy. Chad and Jeremy. I mean, you name it. It was.
At this point in time, was the Monkees?
Now the Monkees came a little bit later, in 1966.
Because that when I always think of drummers, I always give him the nod, because he's.
The thing, Mickey wasn't a drummer; he was a guitar player.
Yeah.
And they set him up with a set of drums. If you look at the way he set up his drums, you'd be going like, "What is this? How can he go over here and go over here?"
Yeah.
It was kind of a farce in the beginning, But as far as drummers, Ringo was the first for me. And then, as time progressed, in the 60s into the 70s, as I always say, John Bonham was the one that did it for me with his foot. And all these guys are using these double pedals all these years, man. I never did that. I played doubles. I played triples on my bass drum on one pedal. I taught myself how to play toe, and you're using a pedal, a Speed King, or maybe I used to have Pearl pedals that I loved once I started using them in the 70s. But I was able to get the action, get it fast, and there wasn't a lot of drummers that were doing that at the time. Matter of fact, later on, my son Keith was doing it. They called him Rabbit Foot for a long time. Ask Al Bicocchio about that. But back then, I adored about him because he was different. He tuned his drums like nobody else did. I mean, everything was open. It was like boom, boom, and the size of the drums, no one was using a 15-inch tom, an 18-inch floor, 26-inch bass drum. I mean, you got to be kidding me. He was the first. He was an innovator, and it was a very defined sound. So, and the way he would do triplets, with the bass drum, the two toms and stuff, all these things were different. Ian Pace from Deep Purple was another favorite of mine. He was Mr. Speed. The guy was so quick and fast. He was like Buddy Rich on some other height, but rock and roll. And Ian Pace, I adored him because of the way he had style, and he was speed. He had speed. Don Brewer, Grand Funk Railroad. A lot of guys were going. Don Brewer going. Bop, 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 bop. He changed a lot of different patterns, so I grew off of him. So those are some of the guys. Then later on, Liberty DeVito with Billy Joel, just so many people. But they got their roots from the school, the masters. I mean, I myself never considered myself as a technical drummer, like a Buddy Rich or a Gene Krupa. And when I found out, we all have aspirations, and you say, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, but you hone in on what you do well, and stay straight, rock steady, drive the band. You're the timekeeper.
Yep.
The whole rhythm section, until you find out and you understand what the concept of the rhythm section is, that the drummer and the bass player, if you are playing together, that's the lock and the key, and it's very important. So a lot of people don't understand that when they first start playing. And I had a very good bass player, and I'll even acknowledge it, Bill Krause, who was with me in Sheriff Jones. And I was playing drums, for a number of years, playing with different bands. And Sheriff Jones, when I went with them, it was like, sort of like going almost with the Beatles, because here in Schuylkill County we had the other side, we had the Jordan Brothers, we had Auburn, and now playing with Sheriff Jones was kind of the higher echelon, in the level of bands. But when I got with Sheriff Jones, I felt very good. I felt I was in a great spot. But Bill, one time, took me aside. He said, "Eddie, you're not playing with me." And I said, "What do you mean?" I had no concept of what the man meant. We used to do rehearsals in his cellar, just me and him. And he'd say, "Okay, this is what I'm playing on this tune. This is what I'm playing on this. This is, and then I'd say, and we're locking. And we eventually put that lock and key, and then I took that from that day forward to the rest of my life.
Yeah. For a while there, I tried to pick up a bass and learn how to do it, and when I learn something, I'm like super meticulous, I guess, but I don't like when someone's like, "Oh, everything has to be the proper this and the proper that," and then I looked at the guys like the Monkees or David Grohl, and if you look at how like David Grohl learned how to play guitar, he's like, "No one gave me a guitar lesson." He goes, "I looked at a guitar like a drum set, like this, and I learned how to play." So I always tell people, like, you don't always have to be like somebody else. You can kind of adapt your own style.
You don't want to be mechanical. Everything, music is freeform. Music is feel. Music is fun, and you don't want to be locked in a box.
Because you'll sound too much like the person you're learning from, and you're not going to develop your own thing.
Exactly. We talk about that all the time. Like we talk about, cover. I was, basically with me, I did do a lot of original stuff. Granted, I played with original bands and things, but I would say 70% of my life was, playing covers. And it was because to survive.
Yeah.
I toured on the road with the Drifters. I was 21 years old, out on the road doing one-night stands with the Drifters under the boardwalk. Up on the roof, there goes my baby. Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. Here I'm a young kid from Pottsville, touring the country. Just like Eddie's.
Under the boardwalk is one of my favorite tunes.
That's awesome.
So it's pretty cool. Doing that, but you develop all kinds of things as you go along.
Yeah, and the cool thing is like how you were saying how the bass player and the drummer have to really sync in together. When I started picking up bass, like obviously when I like, oh, I'm gonna learn how to play bass, I kind of looked right away towards the bands that showcase the bass more, and then I was like, all right, and then I kind of looking at bands that where the bass player kind of synced in more with the drummer, and I'm like, I didn't even realize that was the bass playing at that point in time, because it almost sounds as if it's just the drummer, because the bass kind of hid itself in there.
And the other importance too is when you're playing with say a Crowbot situation, where the old days, Cream, Hendrix, that kind of thing, we call it power trio. That's where even more so, because there's only three pieces there. There's nothing else to hide it. You've got no keyboards and nothing. You've got to produce. You've got to be solid.
It's like a harmonized thing, like where three singers kind of each person has their own voice. It's awesome to hear.
We call blend.
Vocal harmony. It's nice blend. 100%. So you hit your first talent show. You're touring. Now, did you ever pick up any other, like, when you said you were a drum player, did you ever, like guitar, bass, anything like that?
Yeah, well, guitar came into play around 1967. I was, around Christmas time, at a department store in West Hazleton. And I was wandering around, and near the jewelry counter, they used to have all these, what we used to call Japanese guitars, all these off browns, you know. And I happened to see this Telstar up above, right underneath the ceiling displayed. You know, it was like $29 or something like that. I'm like, oh man, well, I'd like to get a guitar, you know, sunburst, like a, you know, like a Strat type of color. And so I mentioned it to my mom. Well, Christmas Day, there was the guitar, man, you know. I got the guitar, and naturally my uncle, I played and whatnot, and I didn't have an amplifier, so he brought over a Harmony amp, which I wish I had to this day, man. It must have been like a 1958 or 59, big red pilot light on it. Later on, I took the speaker in front, put a big peace sign on it. You know, that'd be cool, you know, 8-inch speaker. But anyhow, I had this guitar, and I started playing. But I'm right-handed. Now, everybody freaks out because nowadays they know that Eddie's a right-handed drummer, but he plays left-hand bass and guitar. What's the scenario here? Well, this is what happened. I picked the guitar up and tried to play it conventional. You know, I couldn't make sense out of it. I'd flip it over, left-handed, and I could play it, but I couldn't make chords, okay? So I was trying to figure out a way to devise this, and I didn't know that people did this method until later. I know Tommy James from Tommy James and Shondells plays this way. But I took and I devised a way that I would tune all the strings to an open E, and then I would just take my finger and bar them, and I'd be able to make these chords. And then I'd do inversions and minor sevenths and all. So I started playing a little bit of guitar. I was always backward about it. I didn't let nobody know, you know, any serious players that I did this stuff, you know. But I was amusing myself. You know, I could play like this, you know, it's cool and all. And then in 71, around that time, I was playing, actually, a lot of stuff happened in between. We talked about 1969, the talent show. By 1970, the following year, I was playing with the Hazleton Philharmonic Orchestra. 101 pieces were, and this was incredible. Father Joe Ferrara, God love him, up in the Hazleton area. He had the Philharmonic Orchestra. He also had a summer camp down at Furwood near drums, which Jack Palance, the actor you saw in you know, the movies, you know, Jack had bought the land, and we had the summer camp there. We had a big band shell, which is called the Jack Palance, you know, performing a band shell or whatever. And we used to have concerts every Saturday night. So I went there initially for a 2-week stay in a summer camp, and I loved it. Within that 2 weeks, by the end of the 2 weeks, I was part of the orchestra. So I was playing timpanis, bells, everything, and I was a great reader. I could sight read. You put the drum music in front of me, and I flew, you know, like that. But we had a gentleman by the name of Jack Smith, and he played the trap, what we call the traps. He had a bass drum, tom-tom, and a couple of we had wood blocks and stuff like that. So he was the main drummer, and I would play timpanis, and then I would sub on things with him. So it was a really cool experience. I'm 13 years old, man, you know. So this is really great. This is all happening. So I'm playing these concerts, I'm playing these shows. They also have, this is good, I'm going to tell you the story you like it. I guarantee. But they had decided to do this thing where they're going to do a spin-off with a 15-piece big band. At the time, Chicago just came out. Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Eyes of March, all these horn bands. So I'm really loving it. At the time, when all these horn bands came out, I went back and started digging out the old big band records. So I'm listening to Artie Shaw and Glenn Miller. Matter of fact, I won a contest on the radio one time because I called Bob Sacco at WAZL. He played American Patrol by Glenn Miller, and I guessed what it was. You know, he couldn't believe it. He says, "Kid, how old are you?" I said, "I'm 13, Mr. Sacco." He said, "Well, how do you know this stuff?" You know, I said, "Well, I listen to this stuff, you know, and I play with the big band." But anyhow, with the big band, and so it was like 71 going to 72. I was like 14 going to 15. I had the hippie thing going, man. I had the hair down to here, and I had a pair of these blue corduroys, which I loved, you know. So I had these blue corduroys on, and also a pair of moccasin boots. So I'm told that we have this gig in Hazleton, and it's going to be in a vacant lot next to Carmen's Restaurant. Now, I didn't have no transportation. In those days, I took my drums with a cab. You know, every time I had a gig, I took the cab, called the cab. So the cab takes me down,
And you're at this time at what age?
14 going to 15.
So imagine in today's times, a 14-year-old kid hails his own cab.
Yeah, exactly. No, actually, I called the cab 454, whatever it was.
Called his own cab. His parents like, see ya, have fun, your thing, and 14-year-olds old just.
Yeah, so I get the
awesome.
I get the car. I get the cab with the drums. The cabbie drops me off. I get the drums out. Now. Look at this. This is the hippie. He's got these blue paint. He's got this.
You're like Tommy Chong.
And
remember when he put all his drums in the car?
He's setting the drums up in a vacant lot. So I'm there. I set all these drums up, and people are walking by, and they're, what the hell is this? Is this guy on drugs or what? Lo and behold, after I get everything set up, I'm standing around there. All of a sudden. And nobody was there, because I was always early. And Eddie will tell you, I'm a punctual guy, man. If you tell me to be there at 7 o'clock, I'm there at 6:45. This is the way my life rolled, It's better to be, before than after. And so I get at this gig, I set everything up, and people are walking up and down, looking at me really strange. Next thing you know, here comes Hazleton policeman. He comes over to me and says, if you don't mind me asking, what are you doing here? And I said, sir, I'm here. I'm here. He said, you got these drums set up? Well, I said, yeah. I said, I'm doing a show with the Hazleton Philharmonic Big Band. He says, oh, okay, because we got a call, and somebody said that there was some hippie up here setting his drums up. I said, well, thank you, It was great, Eventually, the rest of the band showed up,
And you were already set up like
Yeah. Later on, I learned how to dress, within proper couth of whatever the gig was.
Yeah.
At the time, I was just me, so I show up, like I am,
Mm-hmm.
But it was good experience, playing, all that stuff and rock and roll, and then eventually to my first rock and roll band. Well, matter of fact, between all this also, I played every Saturday night from 1971 through 1974 with a three-piece band called the EC3. And that was probably the most enjoyable part of being a kid, because I never expected to be playing every weekend, every Saturday.
And that was cover band?
Yeah, actually, that was what we called back then a variety trio, because they played everything. They played everything from the to polkas, to anything I had. I wanted. If I wanted to play rock and roll, I would have to bring the sheet music in. So and they put it up on the stand, and they play, the chord changes, like was on the sheet music and stuff like that. But a gentleman by the name of Mike Shima, and on accordion, and Don Galate on guitar, and they were very nice to me. I had happened to be at the Club Kirkwood for a wedding. My mom was a waitress during the week, on the weekend, and then when they have weddings and stuff like that, she'd come in and help out back in the kitchen and stuff like that. So she brought me the one day. I guess they had no babysitter at home, so I come up, and the kid sits in the back with my mom, and all of a sudden she comes in and said, "Did you want to sit in with the band?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll sit in with the band." I had no idea. I was always gullible. I was never afraid of stuff. And that's why I told all my kids the same way. Never be afraid, to go out and jam with somebody or something like could be your next dollar. You'll never be hungry, But I go out and I jam with these guys. I sit up on the drums, and they told me what they had. So they asked me if I would do Aquarius, Let the Sun Shine in the Fifth Dimension. At the time, it was the big song, 1969, 70. And so I played. And I seen all these people just kind of, standing around. Wow, it's just, little 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid up there playing the drums, So 2 weeks later, my mom comes home from the Club Kirkwood one night and says, "We need to talk." And I thought I did something wrong, And I said, "Well, what's up?" She said, "Well, you remember Mike and Don up at the club?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, their drummer's leaving, and they asked about you taking place."
Teenager.
And I think this was like going to the Beatles, man. I said, "You're kidding?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, we'll just have to watch to see how things go, and that kind of thing, being stern,
Playing the
parent thing, Yeah. But I got the gig, and I would make $15 every Saturday night, and a free meal. I still have one of the ads. It says "Key3, special tonight, roast beef." Yeah. But it was big stuff. So I was getting exposure, playing every different type of music. We used to have a couple that would walk in. There's old gentleman and his elderly gentleman and his wife, and they would always ask for the Blue Damn You Waltz. I grew to hate this thing. Well, anyhow, what they would do when people were dancing, they would take this, I don't know if it's like a sawdust or something in a can, and they would take it and shake it all across the floor.
So it slides a little better.
Well, that's what these people that would dance, they would let them showcase. Other people would sit down and just kind of watch them, clap. So this couple got up to dance, and when they did this particular time, they put too much sawdust out there. What happens is the man lands on his ass. So that was the last time. He was so embarrassed. They walked out of there. I never saw him again. I never had to play the Blue Danube Waltz anymore.
Supposedly, when I was told my grandparents, from my dad's side, my uncle, my grandfather, his name Elmer Blackwell, and then Betty, but her name was Elizabeth. They said they were really good, people go up and watch them dance. I don't think it was them, but that was their claim to fame for a while. They were good dancers. He's also good junk too. But yeah. So all right, now you're still a teenager and you're accomplishing stuff that's in the music that's not many people do, and I think. Well,
and besides that too, you got to keep in mind. I told you before about my uncle, and he would take me in all of his travels. I mean, so we did this record thing together. But he went into radio. He worked at a lot of radio stations in Pennsylvania, major market radio stations, WAVZ in New Haven. He also had a publishing company called Drucker Publishing BMI. He did Timothy by the Boys, which in 1971 went to number 13 on Billboard. So in all this stuff, I'm going to New York City, man. I'm going to recording studios. I'm going to record companies. I'm meeting all these artists and stuff like that. So put all that together too.
Yeah. How did you balance childhood and school on top of all this music work?
That's an interesting story. Let me share this one here. Well, by the time I was in high school, this is where the crash and burn really came, and I started knowing what path of life that I wanted. I wanted music. I was also an artist too. I did truck lettering and show cards and stuff like that, and did some things for businesses up in the Hazleton area and whatnot. But when high school came, this is like we were talking about the Key 3 and all these other great things that were going down. I naturally want to play rock and roll. So I'm playing with the Key 3, and this is in the summer of 1972, and it hit me like a bolt of lightning. I'm in Wildwood, New Jersey, on the beach. And I don't know what the spark was. I remember I bought a Ray Charles album. I did this, I did that. I'm sitting on the beach, and all of a sudden I said, you know what, when I go back home, I'm going to start a band. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to start a band. So when I got back home, August of 1972, I put an ad in the Hazleton Standard Speaker, and I still have it till this day. And I was looking, for a bass player. I had a guitar player from school that worked with me. Sean Gagolo, his name was, a great guy. And so we're going to put a band together. So I fielded all these phone calls, and I was 16 at the time, summer of 1972, 15, summer of 72. And this gentleman by the name of John Sitch called me. He was 19 years old, older cat, had this harmony bass, real cool looking thing. And we started jamming, so we formed this group called Tammany Hall. And a few months later, a gal that he knew that had played in a girls band called the GIs, Girls Incorporated. She came with us named Rhonda Dabrowski. And so now we had the 4-piece unit called Tammany Hall. So I'm in high school, and I'm playing these teen dances, right? But then I would slip on the weekends too. We go to Klein's in Bowmanstown. We're playing these nightclubs. I mean, this is cool stuff, real cool stuff. Now, the kicker is that we come up to the high school, we're playing with this band for about 2 years. We're doing the high school dances, stuff like that. And we had a rehearsal hall in Whitehaven. Our bass player, Greg Sahina, invited us to rehearse up at his place. So we started rehearsing in this little shanty outside his house. I mean, this thing was like half the size of your room here, man. And one night, these bunch of people were digging what they're hearing outside, asked if they could come in, and a couple of guys, a couple of gals, and I looked at the one gal, and it was like Davy Jones watching Marcia, the Brady Bunch. And her name was Debbie, and happens to be my wife for 45 years now.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we met her at a rehearsal. I was playing, what was I playing? A Beatle medley, of course. But how do I balance all this stuff? Here's a great analogy is that when I was in my senior year of high school, I won't say how many days I skipped. I'll never forget sitting down, because we didn't, have the modern technology of earphones and a nice receiver, to listen to your music, to pick your parts out, stuff like that. And we were going to work on Nowhere Man by the Beatles. And the hardest part in the song is the lowest part. He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans with nobody. I mean, it's down there. And unless you really listen to the record to hear that part, that was George Harrison's, you listen to the harmony, you can't hear it. You can hear the high part, McCartney, you know, he's a real, and you can hear Lennon's lead. But what's that third part? I sat all day, I took off of school, okay? I sat all day from morning, it had to be like 9 o'clock in the morning until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I nailed it. I was so proud of myself, man. I'm going to rehearsal tonight. I've got the lower part figured all out. Went to rehearsal naturally, you know, and the guys, you know, just blew their top. You know, how did you do that? You know, because I sat all day listening, just earing it. You know, I had no headphones on. I had nothing, you know, no Fostex unit to take out the instruments, so I could just hear the vocals. But that's how determined I was, you know, for the music. You know, devoting myself that much. Naturally, it was a bad situation that senior year, because when it came time for graduation, boys, you know, there was a little issue. And me and Debbie, we did go to the prom and stuff, all that cool stuff. But they took me into the office, Principal Antonelli. He says, Mr. Collins, we have an issue here, and I think, you know, you're 16 years old, so you've got to graduate or you've got to get a job. So I think we'll see you here next year, won't we? So I had to finish a couple of days to get my diploma. But I did graduate from West Hazleton High School, class of '74, proud to say. And so that was the whole beginning there. So I was at in the high school, but I did balance things, and you find that happy medium. You do find it.
See, I used to get shit for taking off days of school for playing guitar and stuff, but here he is trying to figure out Beatles harmonies.
See, the truth comes out, son.
They always say that apples will fall too far from the tree, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
And I'll tell you what, like, now you're telling me a lot, like, about who you as a youth and growing up. One of the things I will 100% say about your offspring and your family is, you've definitely passed on that determination, that work ethic. Because, I mean, you're a kid shining shoes, like, I want that instrument, I want that next thing, and you weren't afraid to jump in and do something here, or start something, or just, you weren't afraid to come out of your comfort zone to do something else. Your music taste was so, your spectrum was so wide open that you could fill in at any point in time and do that. It was...
You know, it's like you're saying about that, and I always liked all kinds of music. It wasn't like a lot of players when they get started. Why? You know, I just want to play metal. I just want to play metal. What's going to happen? Everything comes in cycles. The demand and all. What happens if metal goes out? You're out, man. You know. So by playing, like I said, you know, before with the key3 and things like that, with the variety of music, I always had my ears open. I liked everything. The good thing about all my kids, they always kept me in sync. You know, I remember when the grunge thing came on, Keith was playing with Pyramix and later Psycho Betty. So I mean,
Betty.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
We'll talk about all this stuff. I'm sure it'll come up, you know. And then all along the line, and with the things that Eddie's been with and all, it keeps me abreast of what's going down, you know, in the industry. You know, but being able to always fall into something, because music always comes back. Look at the media, look at commercials. I just heard the other day, was it on a Datsun truck or something, there was a song, na 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 na, hey hey. A good friend of mine, Gary DiCarlo, wrote that from Steam. But everything comes back, you know. So if you can adapt yourself, you'll never go hungry, you know. Yeah. That's the same thing with these guys. Eddie's played in every aggregation of music and filled in with every situation, you know, from oldies to the 50s, 60s, you know, to anything you put him into. You know, that's the blessing in disguise, you know, understanding, you know.
And learning, like I said, just being very open-minded and just having, I think the biggest thing to take away, especially if someone's watching this that wants to take that path in music, obviously, you know, schoolwork has to come first, all right? But it's don't be afraid to have that work ethic, you know, and kind of go out of your comfort zone. Because how you're saying, like, most kids at 14, 15 now, you're like, hey, do you want to join in on the band? And most kids are like, not a chance. And you're just like, yeah, like, kind of fake it till you make it for a while, and then you're gonna when you put yourself around people that are anything, like, I grew up as someone who played sports, and for the longest time I wasn't hitting my peak where I wanted to be as a basketball player. And then I met a group of guys who were really, really good, that upped my game. It made me better at what I did. And then when we would travel and play everywhere, it's same with music. Like if you put yourself around musicians who are working to get better and that are better than you, you're just going to grow. And just being as young as you were to go through all that and just keep playing with older guys who had more experience, and you were like a sponge. Like you.
Well, it's funny you say all that kind of stuff, because I went through a couple of things with Eddie, and the same thing with Keith. Now, Keith got started early. They all did. Chris was more the late bloomer, and that's funny because he got started probably around 12 or 13. And Eddie had a lot to do with that too, because Eddie was already fluent, and Chris would be hearing the guitars, and then he started playing the guitar, and they start jamming together, all that good stuff. But excuse me, I had taken a little sabbatical, and matter of fact, another part of my life was being in radio broadcasting. So when the chips were down, or I could see the chips going down, in the early 80s, we had a lot of rooms where you could play 4 or 5 nights a week. I was on the road for about 3 years playing with a number of acts. I almost had an audition with Joe Perry for the Joe Perry Project, too.
Oh,
very proud to say that. His wife saw me one night.
Somewhere around here, Aerosmith.
Yeah, it was a funny thing. Yeah.
I'm a big Aerosmith fan.
Yeah, funny thing, I was playing I was in Lenox, Massachusetts, and I had been on the road with a group called Magic Machine, and it was like a Tuesday night, and usually, like in your bars and your holidays, all kind of stuff. Tuesday's like always an off night. People at the bar, they're watching TV. They don't care about you playing back there. So, but you're doing your thing as you would normally do. And I always said that doesn't matter if there's 4 people in the place or 400. You play the same way, because you don't know who's going to walk in. That could be your next bread and butter. It could be an agent. It could be anybody. So I'm just kind of doing my thing. And the bartender says these 2 people that just strolled in would like to buy you a drink. So the guy and the gal, the hair, the whole leather look, like Joan Jett, the whole ordeal. So I go over and introduce myself, and thanks for the drink or whatever. He said, sit down, sit down. And he said, are you pretty content in what you're doing right now? And I said, well, I'm always looking for windows of opportunity. And so the gal said, are you familiar with Aerosmith? And I said, I absolutely am. And she said, well, I'm Melissa Perry, Joe's wife.
Oh my God.
She said, as you know, you probably know that Joe had left the band, and Joe, actually, what happened with that. We're not going to talk about that. But anyway, she said that Joe was putting a new band together called Joe Perry Project. Would you be interested in an audition? And I said, I most certainly would. So we exchanged the info and stuff. But a lot of people will tell you when you're on the road, there's so many things happening. A lot of times you don't even know what town you're in and kind of stuff like that. So things do get lost in the shuffle. So I came back to Pennsylvania, and the contact, it just didn't happen, But I always say about 6 months later, I was at Boscov's, and flipping through the new releases, and pull it up. There it is, the Joe Perry Project. And I always say I could have been almost there. If I ever do a book, it'll be called Almost There, because there's so many things in my life that were, cool things that I'll look back and say, yeah, almost.
Yeah. In retrospect, though, I mean, that was the height of Joe Perry's drug issues and alcohol issues, and
probably would have been a train wreck.
Yeah, that would have been. That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, we were saying about the 80s and all. There was a slide. We came off of the disco era, and I was a rocker. Back in the late 1970s, and when I saw that I didn't have to work, I had a family support, because this was my livelihood. At the end of the after during the 80s and all, early 80s, late 70s. And we didn't have all these rooms to play. So when I came back home off the road, we had the Alley, we had Cons and Shamokin, a couple other places that ran 4 or 5 nights, but not enough to survive. And I decided to get into radio broadcasting, knowing my uncle had worked in broadcasting. I kept hearing in the back of my ear, Eddie, get in the radio. So finally, I took a demo tape to Bud Onks at WLSH up in Lansford. And Bud took the tape. He says, this is pretty good for somebody who's never been in radio before. He says, how'd you like a job? So I put me in the radio. And I spent 10 years in radio, man. I was
I feel like
Power 106.5 and 95.3.
Yeah, I feel like if you were still, and like if they put you on a local radio station now, I wouldn't have a Sirius subscription. I'm being honest, because I think because you talk very well, like you have a very good story, you have a very good demeanor about your knowledge and your, like I said, your range of history and music stuff is awesome. Yeah. Like you I mean, be like, oh, this record coming up is this, and here's a cool little thing about it. Like it would, for me, I would love to. Like I wish more disc jockeys did stuff like that. You know what I mean?
See, that's what you're getting to a good point, because what happened with radio when I got into it in 1983, it was desperation, because we had the family, Keith and Carrie. We just had Chris, excuse me, And I said, if I can't make it as a player, and it was wrong because I quit totally. I mean, I didn't quit just to say, well, I'll just play weekends. I figured, well, if I can't play full time, I'm not going to play at all. You know, maybe radio will be the thing for me. So I put my foot forward and lived, eat, and breathe because I was around all of it. But I imagined it the way that it was when I grew up. I grew up with radio. I grew up with these headsets. I grew up listening to these guys where the gentleman that is talking to you was your friend. You know, there's a different concept about radio. People think it's, oh, you're talking to millions of people. No, it's one-on-one. You know, you're the communicator. That's how you established a rapport. Years ago, it was called personality radio because you were talking to somebody, you were communicating, you were talking about the record. You know, hey, there's a brand new one from so-and-so, da-da-da-da. And then when the record was over, you do the same, that was so-and-so, the brand new one. Why? Because you were taking that person to go buy that record. If they don't hear the name or the title, you don't know who the hell it was, right?
And if you have even with the theory with this podcast, like I enjoy like how I help musicians, our local business. If someone knows more of the person and gets a backstory of who they are as a person, or maybe a little bit of snippet about them, they'll be more inclined to be like, oh, Eddie Collins is a really cool guy, and he's going to be part of this album or this project. I'm gonna go listen to him now because I've learned a connection about him. You know, like there's that thing, and I think that's where a lot of people get lost in the shuffle.
Well, see, that's what happened because when I first got into radio, I thought, oh, this is what it's gonna be like, you know. And the more that I was into it, I understood radio because it's a lot of buying, a lot of selling, stations being sold, formats change. In a 10-year period, guys, I learned so much about our business, more than what I knew on the outside track, or followed and through my uncle's footsteps and all that kind of stuff like that. But when the whole thing was that going through transitions of radio stations, I worked in top 40. I was playing Def Leppard when they came out. I was playing Benatar, all this stuff, and I was playing all these formats. That's my big genre is oldies. I love the 50s, 60s, 70s stuff. I grew up with, but I was able to take myself in present day and rock it out. I knew everybody in the business. I knew everybody at every record label. I had excellent record service at every station I worked at. I was a music director. I was on the phones with these people all the time, finding out what was hot, what isn't. I helped Dirty Looks get on Atlantic Records. I mean, all kinds of great stuff. That was wonderful, and people were good to me. I made a lot of friendships, and it wasn't the highest paying job, but it was a paycheck at the end of the week. I could support my family, and I loved the business. But it kept changing. Satellite, automation, live assist. Next thing you know, one of the last radio stations I worked at was a brand new radio station, brand new, called Magic 93 in Wilkes-Barre, and WMGS Radio, and by Susquehanna Broadcasting. Great bunch of people, probably the most professional outfit that I worked with. And it was a great situation, but being a brand new station on the air, they wanted the music to talk. They, specifically saying, that music is the one that's going to carry it here, okay, not the jock behind it. So we were reading 4x6 idiot cards, typed on it. You're listening to the new Magic 93. Now here's blank, and that was it. You'd intro the record. That it becomes homogenized. It becomes sterile.
Your personality can't come out.
You have no personality. So I was seeing all this stuff, and after 10 years, and I don't want go through the whole scenario of what went down, but I just got tired of the industry, and I was drugged out as much as I could, be with the family and financially and everything else, and spiritually and mentally, And I said 10 years, I've seen it, done it.
So there was a 10-year gap where you didn't pick up an instrument at all. You just
there was actually from 1983 to 87. I didn't do anything at all, and that's when we were living in Hazleton. Keith was growing up, and that's when he started playing the drums because they were always set up in the attic, and I never force-fed, and I don't believe in that. If a kid wants to play an instrument, it's there. You let them go to it. It's like in the old days, people say, well, you got to play the piano. You've got to go to piano lessons. And if that's not in you, there's not going to be any music made. Somebody's sitting there being forced, to do stuff like that. But there was a 5-year period, and then in 87, I had done like a 6-month stint with the group called Roundabout, just like for a weekend thing. Matter of fact, Dave Haslam, who just passed away recently, I worked with Dave. I just, matter of fact, produced the tribute show for him that we did at Goodfellas months back. So that was, for a couple months, and it was good to get it back out of my blood, But this is what I call the second coming. Was in 1991, and that was right after Eddie was born. It was kind of great timing. Eddie was in our life, and now my music came back. And the very short, funny story though of how these things happen was I was on the radio at Magic 105.5 at Tamaqua. I did a show every Saturday night called Saturday Night the Oldies with Mr. Ed, and our Congressman Tim Holden called in, and at the time that was right before he was congressman. And he called up, Eddie, how you doing? He says, listen, would you play a song for Fat Robbie? Now, Fat Robbie in this area was like, he was like the Elvis. People loved Robbie, And Robbie had a unique persona, man, and he had the Mud Flap. He was with the Mud Flaps for a number of years. It was a big phenomenon in this area, And so Robbie wanted, hear a song, so I played. I went back on the air. I said, Robbie, I said, here's one for you. I said, this is Johnny Maestro and the Crest, Trouble in Paradise. Boom, the record comes on, phone line lights up. I pick up the phone, Magic 105.5. Eddie, you SOP. I never knew you were Mr. Red after all these years. So lo and behold, we talked for a while, and he was saying the essence of that he wanted to get back into doing things that some of the guys locally were saying, well, you get back to a couple of reunion dates and all. So it ended up that we decided to put the Fat Robbie reunion tour together and do one show just for the Make-A-Wish family in June, I think it was June 9th of 1991, and 1,000 people showed up.
Wow!
So the bells kind of went off, and I'm a guy, I'm a promoter. I see different things in the business, and it's all about timing. It's how you attack it. And a couple of days later, I approached Robbie. I said, I think this is too good, man. We got do a couple dates, a couple reunion dates around the area, whatever. And he thought it was nuts, and we talked with the rest of the boys, so we did. And ended up to be a 14-year run.
Wow.
So that's not too bad for a shabby weekend band. I mean, we had, we are, and that, it was always, like I said, about timing. This is Coal Region, they love nostalgia. We were doing costume changes. We had like 14 different outfits at one time.
Holy crap.
Yeah. We come out, we would do skits, Orbis and all this kind of stuff with the wigs and all, So it was different because nobody was doing that stuff at the time. Exactly. It was a show band. We had Bobby Mann, who was a great production man with us. He's not with us no longer, passed away some years ago. But we had top flight production. Matter of fact, Chris Kurtz was doing our follow spot for us later with the Pop Tart Monkeys. That's where he got to start with us. 16 years old, we're in the follow spot.
So just I want to kind of dive into something with local music because I remember seeing something on your Facebook that I want to bring up. I remember growing up, I never really listened to the music scene. I mean, I listened. My dad is he was a DJ. He was DJ TB. Yep.
No kidding.
Out of Shenandoah, and he did a lot of like little stuff like that. So he was DJ TB, but he wasn't like radio. He would just like show up and do parties and stuff.
TB with the DBs. Right?
Yeah. So he did a lot of that. So he put me into a lot of music, and at first I was just like, ugh. I didn't care about music, which is it's funny, but I listened but I was into like the pop music, I guess, as a kid, but I didn't really like dive in. If it was on, it was on, but I didn't really seek it. As long as I had my Ninja Turtles and wrestling was on, I was good. And then my mom was into like the Rod Stewart, the Heart, the Queen, like that pop rock, I guess you would say. And then, so I remember I'd be like, oh, we have to get a babysitter this weekend. And I was like, wow, why are you going? And then they'd be like, we're going to see, like, my mom and dad's favorite person growing up to go see was Chuck Cahoe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, we got to go.
It was his birthday yesterday.
Yeah, so we got to go see Chuck. They always say, we got to go see Chuck. We got to go see Chuck. And I was like, who is Chuck K? And like, what? And he was just like a one-man acoustic guy. And I remember like as I got older, because he toured. He did a lot of different shows. He went all over the place. And I remember like he would do like a block party, or he would do something at like a mall, and they'd be like, "That's Chuck," and I'd be like, "That's Chuck Cahoe," and I listen to him like, "Oh, he plays all these cool songs." And that's songs that I would listen to all the time with my mom or my grandma, or like so then music started more diving in for me. And I remember I hit like high school, and it's like I got it. Like my first band I got into that my dad kind of got me into, but was Aerosmith, AC/DC.
Oh, sweet.
And then I went from
was the first CD I ever owned.
Who?
Aerosmith.
Yep, Aerosmith Big Ones was my first CD.
It's the first one I ever got. My sister gave it to me. She gave me Toys in the Attic.
Yeah.
First CD I ever owned.
Yep. And then I dove into like the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yep.
And then I got into like Blink-182, Green Day, and then I started getting that, and then I was like, oh, I want to go back and listened to the older stuff, and then like then the Zeppelin came, the Beatles, the Who, and I was like, what is this? You know, and then I went back and like all the music I thought I hated because my mom played, like this is girly stuff like Heart and Rod Stewart, and like I was like, this is great too, like, and then just that door just like that light switch clicks, like music.
You know, it's funny you say that because that's what happened in our household. The same thing. You know, when Keith started playing in when he was like around seven or 8 up in Hazleton, and we moved to Pottsville. You know, later after that. He just developed himself. He just submerged himself in everything, you know. And he was always borrowing my records, the Led Zeppelin, to this, to that, you know, just revisiting, you know, everything like that. And the same thing when Carrie came along, and it was funny because it was like a little competition going on, family. You know, it's like because Keith was already out playing. He had he was actually playing with the Philharmonic in Hazleton at one point. He was young. He was playing stand-up bass, all this stuff. So there was all this, you know, music going on, and then Carrie was watching all this adulation, you know, Keith this, you know, well, I'm going to play too, you know, damn it, you know. So she had a paper route, and she would go out and peddle her papers around town here, and next thing you know, there's pictures going up on the bedroom wall, Neil Peart and, you know, all these guys and the drum kits and stuff like that. So she had known Squeak, you know, for a long time over at Albert Terrace. And she went over to see what they had over their used kit. She found a Tama, I think it was a Swing Star or something like that. But she put like $50. So every week, you know, after, like I was doing my, you know, my shoe shine thing.
Your work ethic.
She was doing, exactly, it mirrored, you know. She would take the money from her newspaper route and go over and put it on the drums, you know. So the next thing you know, along the way, I need a bass. So I go over, Squeak calls me, he says, hey, Eddie, I got this great Ibanez over here. This is what you're looking for, you know. I go over, pick up the bass, and my wife, Debbie's there. She says, you know, see what Carrie's got left on that kit, you know. And I said, okay, so what she got left on that Squeak? $50. Okay, man, I'll take care of it. So we paid the drums off. We thought, the kid's going to be enamored. She's going to go crazy because she'll have the drum kit to play now, right? Go home, and she was livid. She was mad. That's my drum kit. I'm paying for it. You had no business doing that. I mean, can you believe it?
Yeah.
Know? But and if you know Carrie, you know, she's Miss Independent. You know? You know, God love her. You know, but that's, you know, where it all started. So you had Keith playing, you had Carrie playing. The next thing happened. Matter of fact, this guy was playing the day that he came back from the hospital after he was born. Matter of fact, I have his first guitar with me. That was it. So he's one day old, and
that was his first toy.
His mom pops him on the couch with me. So he pops him, and we have it on video too, man, at home, you know. So he pops, he's on the couch, and I got him going, and I put his little hand over here, and I says, Lord, bring me a guitar player. And you know what the Lord did? He brought me a guitar player.
Yeah.
He gave me 2, matter of fact.
Yeah.
So Eddie was, from the day he was, I'm serious, from the day he was born, playing guitar, and it didn't matter, like the kiddie guitars, all this stuff, everything he adapted to. And then finally, when he was, I guess around 8 is when you got the Strat, right? The mini Strat.
I think so. So around 7 or 8.
So you kind of answered my question for me. So I always thought, like, you know, I seen like you collect everything. You seem like a big collector. You have all your records, all your newspaper clippings, your flyers.
That came out of my mom being a pack rat.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. I mean, you watch Hoarders now, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, it was organized Hoarders.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good thing because my mom had the tenacity to keep a lot of things as your kid. And even when you're moving and your stuff like that, I have to say, guys, I have probably 90% of the stuff from when I was a kid. You know, records and all this stuff like that. You know, it's unbelievable because I was very well organized and kept things very well, you know, and I'm glad I did that, you know, after all these years, not just for the collector's sake or the dollar value, you know, but it was things that were attached to me, you know, meant a lot, you know.
So, like, instrument-wise, you said you had a set of drum sets that was always up in the attic, right?
Yeah.
And then, was there? Did you have instruments? Like, was instruments ready, accessible in the house? Like, was there? Like,
if you were in our house about 15 years ago, you would walk, you would be laughing because it didn't matter. I mean, with these kids playing and doing gigs and jamming, all. I mean, you walk in the house, there's a guitar laying on the couch. Debbie used to laugh all the time. All I do is pick up stuff. I mean, but she's a musician's wife. It's a different story. You know, she understands the game and the drill and everything. But when you walk in my house, I still have a bass drum. It's the first thing that greets you. So that tells you anything, you know. But there was always stuff in the house, you know, something to bang on or something to, you know, to make some noise.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's like, so it even shows more of your daughter, like, she had those instruments in the house, so she could easily went to and play, but she wanted her own. She wanted that you know what I mean. So it's a really cool thing. Like, it just was there, you know what I mean, and you didn't force it, but it was there if they wanted to pick it up and do it.
So then what happens is after now you got the three of them are already grooving, and Chris is like Chris 5 years older, 6 years older than me. And after Eddie, you know, he's about 10 or 11. It was like cats and dogs. We were just talking about this the other night. How funny how life rolls. And because of, you know, age, you know, it's always, you know, you're the big brother, little brother, you know, you're cool, you know, when nobody's around, but when somebody's here, get out of here, kid, you know. So that was the situation at home. It was nothing different than anybody else's home life. But what happened was, with him and Chris, there was a bonding that happened. And it happened through a guitar. Because Eddie was playing for a long time, for a couple of years. He's like about 12 years old. He's a hot shot, man. He's like I was when I was a kid, you know. And Chris was a little bit older, and all of a sudden, you know, he starts playing. And the one day, I'm walking up the stairs, and I hear this jamming going on, and the door's closed, right? And I said to Debbie, I said, who's that? She goes, it's Eddie and Chris. Leave them alone. So I heard.
Getting along.
So from that day on, that's how these guys are, and that's why, you know, later in life, now that they had the Gorilla Pack, you know, the reggae trip and everything like that. So when Eddie wouldn't be doing shows with me or whoever else, then him and Chris would be playing together. That's the way life is, man.
Do you guys still, like, as a family, like, show up and, like, someone gets on a drum set, someone gets a guitar, and, like, you guys just jam out and play together?
We've done that.
Yeah, we've done. It's not something that happens a lot by any means.
Like, everyone's just in your room playing, and your dad hears you, walks in, and just starts playing, like.
Not so much, but there was a lot of family stuff that happened. Actually, we did a family show. God, how many years ago?
Oh, I'll never forget that. Yeah, that was matter of fact 07, wasn't it?
It was 07, something like that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Who played what in the family show? You have 3 drummers.
Well, what we did with it, it came. Here's the way it happened, because my mom passed away. It was just right after my 50th birthday, matter of fact, and for my 50th birthday, it was a surprise that there was going to be a party, and it was just a kind of remarkable way of how it happened. It was my 50th birthday. The party was planned a year in advance by my wife, the kids, and all this stuff like that. And my mom, resting in heaven, starts to turn for the worse. And we knew that it was only a matter of time. She was going to pass. Lo and behold, a few days before this party, my mom leaves us. Okay. Now, what do you do at this party? You've got people coming from out of town. I didn't know that. Who they had invited. They actually had the guitar player from the Drifters coming in for me, and down from Baltimore, all this kind of stuff. But what do how do you do this? So they decided that the show would go on. Okay. And when I get to the way that they lured me on this is my son Keith had told me a few days before that he was having a party for his buddy, and that could me and him jam on a couple of songs. Let's rehearse. So he came over a couple of nights before, brought his guitar, and we're learning these songs, right? And now, of course, my mom passes. So on the night that this party's going to happen, I don't know about, he comes after the funeral. We sit on my couch. He goes, "We want to go over a couple more of those tunes?" I said, "Yeah, fine." Okay, so we hop in his car. He said, "Okay," he said, "I got to stop over this fire company over here and drop off this microphone for so-and-so." So I'm sitting in this car, I'm holding this microphone. Okay, we get to this fire company. He said, "Why don't you come in and say hello?" You know. So I walk in, open up the door, and surprise! Nice. You know, and that was the biggest surprise. Was because the kids, they had all the instruments set up, and we were all going to jam. It's never happened before. Eddie was 16. And so we all got up and jammed, and the people that were there, Jimmy Duranis was there, my good friend Fritz DeBullis, what you call the Casuals, played sax, all this great stuff. After the whole party was done and everything, me and Debbie were at home, and we're lying in bed. And I said to her, I says, "Do you think this is far-fetched that the kids would maybe want to do something together? Maybe just like a one-off, like we do a block party or something like that?" And she said, "I think that'd be nuts. You should do it." So then I had a meeting with the kids over at Chris's house and said, "What do you guys want to do, man? You know, this is foolish. You know, we're a musical family. Everybody expects this. We should do something." No sooner we had this meeting, this is really weird, because the next day or two later, I just casually went with Deb down to Strikers, and we were having a drink there. And Joe was, I forget what his last name was there at the time. He says, Eddie, let me ask you a question. This is stupid, he says, but with you guys been in this music business so long, did you ever think about doing a family thing? That's what the man says to me, you know. And I said, you know, it's funny you say this, you know. And so lo and behold, it ended up to be a couple months later in August that we did this show. As the Collins Bunch. That was the first time we used the moniker, and we took the Brady Bunch, let it go, you know, put all the heads in there and stuff like that, you know, and it was great. You know, we showcased everybody. Even Carrie played bass on a tune. We did all kinds of crazy stuff. Eddie was playing Leonard Skinner, and I Know a Little, and the people are going, wow, look at that, you know, 16-year-old kid playing this stuff, you know. But it was fun. But the thing is that we're so involved with the music business that every time I look around, somebody's got something going. You know, Keith plays with, he's like myself, he plays with a million bands, you know. I mean, last week I know he was out for Hooligan, he was out with Toolshit Jack. You know, when this guy is not playing, he's got something going. So we could never lock ourselves in to be able to say, okay, this is it, we're going to do this date, we're going to do that date, or do one date. I mean, I still would like, in my lifetime, to do another one.
Yeah,
you know?
I'd love to see it.
And this time, you know, we would really sit down and hone it, you know, on the way, you know, we should do it, you know. And
the way the Goodfellas is going again, where it's like becoming a venue. I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to...
be a bad place to do it.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it all is that, for me, is watching all of my children grow up into this, you know, and go off and do things, you know. And when I, you know, heard years ago, you know, the Carrie was opening for Jackal, and she was doing lights for Quiet Riot, and she's playing with Robin Trower. She took my records to get autographed. I mean, this is all, you know, great stuff. And then when I see them in their own situations, it's unbelievable. And now, on top of that, you know, and besides, you know, and then Chris, you know, playing with him with Gorilla Pack and Front and Tusco and all this stuff, you know, and the Gorilla Pack reggae thing is just so off the radar vibe, you know. And I always say that what you want to look at is your marketplace. What's in the marketplace? What's not in the marketplace? That's what you do, you know. You know, analyze what's going on, what will work, you know. And I would come down, I would see shows with these guys doing the Gorilla Pack thing. They would put it on Facebook, and 2 days later, there's 200 people. They would just, you know, decide, oh, we're going to have a show, you know, and there's 200 people at the, I would be amazed. It would freak me out, you know. But that's how, it's the music, it's the intensity of it, you know, and it's how, you know, it's done and stuff like that. But now we've taken it to the next level with my grandson, Billy, which is Carrie's oldest son. Billy will be 20 this year. And he's been writing, singing for quite a while. So he's kind of debuted just in recent weeks with Carrie opening up for her with the Adrenaline show. Yeah, and Eddie had him out too. You had him on stage, didn't you?
Yeah, when I was...
Lancaster? Or Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, he played with us in Pittsburgh when I was on tour with Handguns. It was funny. We actually he posted a video doing a Handguns cover on Instagram, and I showed it to Jake, the guitarist in the band. And he's like, "That's awesome." He's like, "He's coming out to Pittsburgh, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, tell him he's playing with us." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I hit him up and I told him, like, you know, learn this song or whatever. And he did, and he came out, and we acted like we didn't know him. We acted like he was just some kid in the room. We were like, "Oh, does anybody know how to play this song on guitar?" and stuff like that. And he like raised his hand. He came up, and he played with us, and people lost their minds. It was
pulled a Steel Panther trick.
Yeah, but
I saw the video, man. It was
crazy.
It gave me chills, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything that gives me more chills than seeing these kids as they've grown up and have done certain things. The first time I heard Chris sing, and this is only like in recent years, maybe about 3 years ago, he was living in Minersville, and it was, as a matter of fact, I think it was on an Easter morning. It was really weird. It was either Easter or Christmas, and I opened up the Facebook, and the first thing that pops on my feed is Chris, right? He's sitting at a kitchen table, and he's singing. I never heard him sing, never in my life, man. And there he is with the guitar. This is only like 3 years ago, so. And he picks up the guitar and he's singing his ass off. And it's like, oh my God. I brought Debbie up. She's crying, you know. And I says, can you believe this? Can you believe this? You know, it's like all this hidden talent, you know, stuff like that. So those are the things that, to me, are most meaningful, you know, in life. I mean, I've done, you know, a lot of things. And I still get things that happen, and I guess it's for a reason too. 2 years ago, Chubby Checker had contacted me to go out and on the road to play drums for him. I had to turn it down. You know, can you imagine an international superstar, you know, hey baby, do the twist, doing it every night in front of 10,000 people, you know? But you look at life, you know, I've got a family. I've still got commitments with my livelihood and work and stuff like that. And I had to meet with Chubby in his tour bus and say, Chubby, I can't come with it, you know. But you know, there's a lot of good things that still happen for me. But I'm in these days, I look at everything that it's about them, about their progression in life and where they're going. You know, Eddie's done some great things in over the years. You know, even from Tekken to Candlelight Red, you know, out on the roadside. He's played, you know, he played probably every state, you know, God love you, all over the country, man. You know, I did, you know, probably about 15 states in my time, but he's nailed it, you know.
Yeah.
But learning every aspect, too. I mean, we love the business so much, and, you know, with Eddie, he's been working with some of the staging companies with Arizona, and and seeing some of the acts, and he's telling me the stories, Michael McDonald, you know, with his keyboard in front of the mirror. I mean, all this stuff is great, you know, but you have to understand too. Sometimes you do have to leave your home base. You have to leave, if it's Schuylkill County, wherever, to get a better grip and understand what is out there. Not saying you have to leave home, you know, but go out, you know, and learn how they do things. So I used to say, you know, you learn how to talk, you learn how to walk. When I was at the Drifters, you know, it was like learning PR skills. You know, it's all part of the business. There's a lot more than playing music. It's a business. You know? And so you want to perceive at it, you know, and proceed. You've got to understand all aspects. It's more involved now since I've been a kid, you know, to see all this technology and all this stuff like that. It's just crazy, you know. I learned from them. I do. I'll still come up. Hey, I'm on the computer. Can you give me a hand here? You know. But you know, it's such a kick, Tony, to see how things evolve. I just can't. In my age, I'll be 62 this summer, man. You know, and to see all this happen, you know, I still feel like a kid. And so I'm 16, you know. But you know, sometimes the body ain't acting the same way, you know. But for me to get out there and still be playing on the weekends too, that's the other pinnacle. You know, I never imagined, I never looked at life and said, well, am I going to still be able to be doing this later on? What's going to happen? But it's supply and demand too. You've got to look at the audience. You've got to look at people. You know, if they're coming out and being entertained, they want to be entertained, you know. So we're doing the music that we grew up with, the music that we like, the music we do best, but it's being responded. That's the whole thing. And people like yourselves will come out and say, wow, man, this is great. You know, this is Cream, Sunshine of Your Love, man. I never heard this. What a tune, you know. Or I can't believe you guys are doing Man-Eater by Hall & Oates. You know? But, you know, we're working every week. We turn a lot of work away because we don't want to stifle ourselves in playing, you know. There's a lot of other great things in life. I spent a lot of time in North Myrtle Beach, other things I didn't get to talk about. I've been very involved in their music community down there, and got to know a lot of the key players, the promoters, the radio guys. I've sat in with a number of the bands, Blackwater Big Horn Band, and Vision, another super group down there. I've been writing for the Beach Music Scene, a magazine out of North Carolina. Also writing for 50 Plus Life here in Central Pennsylvania. I did a feature cover story about American Bandstand's 60th anniversary a couple of years back. So I enjoy other facets of the industry. You know, I always said I like performing, but there's a lot more of this stuff to do, you know. And that's what it does for me.
Speaking of the beach scene, we just lost a pretty good beach style guitar player, didn't we?
Dick Dale, man.
Dick Dale, yeah. We just let today, or is it today or yesterday?
That was, I believe, yesterday. Matter of fact, when all the trends were happening, and I posted this, you know, as well. And there you go. And his what was it? Was it Mr. Lou or
Mr. Lou?
Yeah, it was in Pulp Fiction. Yeah, exactly.
You're pointing right at
it. There you go. You know, there's a song from 1962, 63. In a more current film, and people know Dick Dale because of that song. It's just crazy.
You know what was cool for my generation, our generation, is when the I mean it was a hit and a miss, obviously, because it taught kids, instead of playing a real instrument, to play a toy one. But the music that it put back into kids to like go research when the Guitar Hero games first came out, because a lot of those songs, when those songs those set lists came out, and people were like, what is Thunder Kiss and what's Miserlou and what's, you know, like, you know, Crazy in Love, and like these kids are like playing these songs. Like, these songs are hard to play.
It's an educational tool.
It made a more appreciation that like, this song is hard. I'm gonna go look more about this band. You know what I mean? So like, it's just, the music's just a powerful thing, and it's just so when it comes to, you know, music and you're doing thing, every band has that song to, like, they save that they know it's gonna get the crowd going, or it's gonna get like that pop, we'll say in wrestling terms. What is some of your favorite songs you kind of like to throw out there and try to
There's
get
a lot
people.
of favorite songs, and there's a lot of songs that I don't like because they were so overplayed, the old time rock and roll. I mean, Louie, I mean, but there's a number of songs that, and it's hard to pick one. There's so many different things. I mean, and it's still cool. I mean, you look at AC/DC, Shook Me All Night Long, but the irony of it is that you can go to a wedding. You can go to a club, anywhere. And as soon as you start hearing the intro, everybody's up on that floor, and they're going nuts, and they're having a good time. What is music? It's about fun.
Yes.
So I mean, that's just an analogy, a quick one, But I'm sure there's a handful of songs, that I like too.
I always get the boys upstairs to do Locomotive Breath.
Oh yeah.
Not many people know, like they know, and I because Tom's good at it.
Yeah.
And he's I always like those gems, like they were popular, but no one really know. Like that's one of my.
Yeah, they're iconic tunes. You say Jethro Tull, boom, that's what you say.
Yeah.
You don't say Cross-Eyed Mary. Aqualung will probably come next.
Yeah.
Or there's so many different ones that I like. Too.
From the Hazelton era, do you ever hear of Dom and Mr. Sax?
I know of them. Yeah.
They're pretty cool to see. They play every 2 weeks at what's that place in? Oh my god, I can't think right now. That it's like so if you come up and you take the back way to Hazelton and you go through the industrial park, Bottlenecks. They play Bottlenecks every day, and it's a dad and his son, and the son plays acoustic and the dad plays saxophone.
Oh, that's cool.
Really cool to see.
Yeah, actually, I went back to the Hazelton area to perform with a group from up there back in 2005. The Rocket 88s, like I was saying before, we ran a nice 14-year run with that. But in around 2005, I was getting tired. I was doing everything, man. I was doing the music arrangements, the vocal arrangements, the clothes I would tell everybody what to wear, doing the set list, doing all the booking, all this behind stuff, booking the production, if it was Greg Samanka, whoever was doing our sound at the time. Greg was a great guy, did a lot for us, Randy Tabasco and that. But I just said, I'm tired. And I want to be a part of something, not drive the bus. And you can always tell in the marketplace, you always want to go, if you're going to fold the band, you fold it when it's at its height. You never drag something down, and things change a lot, with the work of the places to play and the DUI, everything kind of took its toll. We had when we had started the Rocket 88s, we would draw 1,300 to 1,500 people at Lakeside Ballroom. I mean, I seen the Gravy days. At the same token, Psycho Betty, same situation. We go to Flagstaff to catch them. First time I saw them, I couldn't believe it. It was the first time I seen the mosh pit. Keith said, "You gotta come and see us." Dad, I go to Flagstaff. Like, what the hell? And the people are flying, the bodies killing each other. I'm digging it. But it's the same time. But I decided with the Rocket 88s in 2005, after 14 years, we had done it. And in that period, I had gotten a call from an old friend of mine in Hazelton, Matt McCashko. A very dear friend we were high school days together. We played in a lot of different bands and stuff, and had a concept to put a unit together, a 9-piece band with 4 singers up front, 5-piece backup band, to do a show concept called the Golden Age of Rock and Roll Road Show. Take it back from the early days of rock, go through into the British invasion periods, the psychedelic period, into the MTV area, and do it up to there. So that's what we did. We put it together. Richie Molinaro, a very dear friend of mine as well. Richie's very well known in the Hazelton area, great guy, great singer, performer. So we put this unit together, and we never played together before that. It's like put these 9 people in a room, tell them to make music, especially 4 lead singers. But that was so cool. It's like another extension. I wanted to do this. I want to do that. Play with this type of band. Play with that. Play with a duo. Play with a trio. Now I'm playing with a big ensemble. 4 singers. I never did that. But it also teaches you discipline. You're a front man. Say you're a Chuck Hale or whoever you are. You put yourself with other people. You can't be the same way. You got to maintain yourself, but you've got to be disciplined because you've got 3 other people. When it's your turn to shine, you shine.
Yeah.
When you're not, you back up and you work with everybody else. It was so cool. We were doing 3 Dog Night, all this intense vocal harmony. Eddie was like our stage manager, road manager during most of the period too.
Yeah.
And it was done very professionally. We had top-notch sound and lights, but I mean, it's hard, when you've got a group that commands $2,000, $3,000 a night. Where are you going? You know, so you don't take that out that often.
Yeah, the venues around here, it's hard pressed to find venues that are going to pay that. And
so we became more or less just like a show band. We took every couple of months or whatever. We did that for like 6 years.
Yeah, that's one of the big things in the area when it comes to the music scene is just finding those venues that are willing to do that and pay that price. But shift gears here a little bit. We'll jump to the third, EC3. So we kind of talked a little bit about everything you've been doing with. Started off in a lot of different bands. You've done a lot. Started at a super young age. I've first seen you. I think you might have jumped up and played a song with the boys upstairs. And I think one of the first times I seen, and then I seen you with Japan 4.
Yeah,
I seen you do a little bit with Japan, and then you, Steve, and Dave did Dookie.
Yep,
a blast. That was a good time. But I think the first time I seen you with Japan 4, I was like, wow, like I didn't realize you could sing. Like very.
Yeah, that was.
I didn't realize you could sing either.
Yeah, good voice. I was really impressed, and then I was like, how come this guy's not doing more? You know what I mean? It just, I think a lot of it comes down to it's your work ethic and everybody else you have to be a project with has to be on the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like
it was definitely a step out of the comfort zone type thing originally, but it was cool. It's still fun. I still love doing that thing. It's just I don't know. It was definitely very, very awkward at first because I was playing guitar and singing originally. And then we had some member changes, and I ended up being a front man. I've never fronted the band like that before, so it's fun. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. And then your oldest brother, he jumps from drums to guitar, and he plays like everything in the band.
Yeah, well, even when we did the family thing, so Carrie played drums predominantly for that. I played guitar. Chris was playing guitar, and then Keith and my dad would switch back and forth with bass. Keith would play keys, or Dad would play keys, or whatever, and it was. So everybody can play a little bit of everything, which is nice.
It's awesome. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's awesome to watch. Now you're going to be, leaving the area for a little bit, going on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
How that came about?
Yeah. So I'll be playing bass with Crowbot for a little while now, and it came. I guess. I've known those guys for years now. They've always been like really, really good friends of mine since I was playing with Cyanide and everything, and. It was talked about a couple times when back a couple years ago, I guess Jake couldn't play a couple shows or something, and they were trying to figure out what they could do, and Bishop hit me up and he's like, oh, can you play bass? And I was like, oh yeah, let me know what's up or whatever, and it fell through and stuff, so I was like, oh, okay, whatever, it is what it is. And eventually he hit me up again, asked me if I can go out and do this run with him. I was like, absolutely. And it's coming at like a weird time though, because like the company that I'm working for right now is like, I work for Event Staging, and it's a big production company who do lights and staging in the whole tri-state area and everything like that. So I was like coming on full time with those guys, and things were looking up in that, but then this came around, so it's like, it's kind of like an awkward time for it, but it's yeah, exactly. It's you got to take some of these opportunities when they're presented, because I don't know if I'm ever going to get a chance to do this kind of touring again. And I definitely want to. There's a Philly show March 10th, or it's on a Monday. I think. Was it Philly?
It's a show in Pennsylvania. It's on a Monday.
We have a Lancaster date. I know that.
That might be the show I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I think that might be
10th, or I don't know. I only know it's on a Monday and I'm off. But I'm excited just because it's like.
Yeah, it is.
It's a school county band. You know what I mean? Like it's. I'm excited.
No better than that.
The sixth.
We're at the Chameleon.
Yeah. So I'm just like super nice dudes. Like. And then you being a part of it, just I don't know. It's just I'm really pumped for it.
It's an honor too. It's like it's blowing my mind still. Some of the festivals that I'm just going out with the damn things in general is huge, because they're a super group of everyone that I've looked up to. You have 2 members from Fall Out Boy. You have Joe and Andy from Fall Out Boy, Scotty Ian from Anthrax, Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die, and now Dan Adriano from Alkaline Trio's playing with them. So it's just like these dudes that I've grown up listening to that have like shaped me musically now, and now I get to play with them every night. It's kind of it's mind blowing. It's It's insane.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it for you. All I know is you got to be very active on social media. Keep us in the loop. I love that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Like when Dave was,
you're excited. Can you imagine how I feel?
Yeah.
Looking at the itinerary, I see Whiskey a Go-Go, Motley Crue, Johnny Rivers. I mean,
well, we're actually not playing that one. We're not doing that one, but we do have a show at the Viper Room. Well, that's the first. Room. Yeah, we are doing Viper Room. The Whiskey is just the damn things. That's their first show on that, and then we meet up with them in Florida for Welcome to Rockville, I think, which is crazy because that'll be, Welcome to Rockville is the first show that we have with them. Yeah. So that'll be the second show that I play with Crowbot because second or third show, something like that. I forget what day.
Now, are you guys just doing the previously recorded stuff, or are they throwing newer stuff in there too?
I have a feeling that there's definitely going to be some newer stuff. They're recording right now as we speak.
Yeah.
So
I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, no, there's probably going to be some newer stuff played on this run, which is pretty exciting for me too.
First time I heard them, I used to always tag. I made a hashtag. I was like saving rock and roll because they were like a band.
That's a nice moniker.
Yeah, because there wasn't something like that for a while, and then obviously other bands came out that kind of started doing it too, but like you got the Greta Van Fleet's pretty popular, but
they definitely have that little niche market though, where it's just funky, groovy rock and roll stuff that nobody's been touching for years.
And it helps the fact too that they're just sweethearts of people.
Oh,
like Bishop and Brandon are just total sweethearts. Like they're just nice guys. Like you walk in and Bishop knows you, just get a hug right away. Just like they're just awesome people.
It's funny you mention that because I was just on their Facebook page recently. Just flipping through some of the recent feeds and stuff like that, and that's the impression you would get. And there's Brandon in the parking lot. He's got the gal. They're very friendly. And I know Bishop for a long time. Matter of fact, it'll probably be funny because he'll probably think that he's Bishop's brother. The thing going. I don't know if he's going to keep his head shaved.
We were actually talking about that. He's like, people are going to think there's two of me on stage now. He's like, I
wear glasses.
Yeah, he's like, I call dibs on the beard, and I'm like, maybe I'll shave the chops back in because I did it on tour Shai Hulud, and then I was like,
do the handlebar. Like shave this out, and just keep this.
That's what I'm considering doing something weird like that, just because Brandon's got the chops going on, Bishop's got the beard.
So you have to. It's like the negative version. Yeah, like whatever they already have.
Exactly.
Yeah. But, one of the big things here I want to bring up, and especially it's just an outside perspective from me. Just when it came to like your family and the way you guys like you're very respectable. You put your best foot forward. Like it's a big thing, especially when you're an artist. It's good to have fun. It's good to do what you got to do, but you got to carry yourself in a certain way because if you carry yourself as an idiot, people are going to see you as an idiot, and that's something that your family doesn't do. They take there's pride in the industry. There's pride in the music. There's pride in the way you carry yourself and the way you put yourself out there and that image of you. And I think that's something that definitely makes the Collins name shine when it comes to that.
That blows my mind all the time too. And I'll be out and I'll be talking to somebody or and they'll mention Keith or Carrie or something like that. Like everybody knows everyone, like or everybody knows them or somebody from the family. And
it's not a bad thing he's ever said.
It's awesome. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah. That's something I could definitely say from an outside perspective is that they're just very professional. Like if you're hiring somebody, one of the Collins is. In whatever band or facet they're in, you're going to get someone who's going to take it seriously. It's going to be a very professional mannered thing, and they're going to respect what's going on. And that's something I've noticed with all of it, like the whole family, and it's nice to see. And I think a lot more musicians should definitely do that route because it's not always taken to the same thing. Like it's important. It's an important thing to do.
It's like I say, it's always in the approach. There's a lot more. Like we said before, besides the music and all the other stuff that goes in, is people skills.
Yeah.
That's the first thing, it's the first impression you get is what you take with you, So, it's how you reach out to people, you touch with them, you communicate, and that's how I always believe as a frontman, people are working hard all week. They're coming to be entertained, you got to deliver. It's not more to just getting up there and sitting there. You got to talk with these people, make them feel good. Make them feel like they're the show.
That's a lot of people don't think about that as like an entertaining standpoint. Like the outsiders, seeing us play or whatever. Like it's still customer service. Like the fans and the people that are out there to see you are the customers, and you're still out there. You have to put on a show. You have to make sure that they go home happy and everything. Yeah. It's the same with anything. Even like the other side, like with the production world and everything. Like it's all customer service. It's all about about making sure that your client's happy, you know, doing whatever you can to make sure they're happy. The show goes off well. It's the same thing with that, making sure the fans are happy, people at the bars are drinking, making money, the owners are happy because the bar's making money. You know, it's a customer service thing through and through.
The funny thing too is that you know, your promoters, they have a lot to do with this because they've got to keep everybody happy. And I have a beautiful friend of mine, his name is Pat DeCesar. He is the gentleman that brought the Beatles to Pittsburgh in 1964. Can you imagine it? One of the first jobs that they had, you know, after, you know, the Beatlemania and all that. And he would tell me so many things. Matter of fact, he has a book out called Hard Days, Hard Nights. And you have a responsibility to each and every one of those people in there to make sure that show goes off and that it goes off right, you know. And back in the old days when he was working with Grand Funk Railroad, Janis Joplin, the Rolling Stones, the Who, you know, I've heard the stories, you know, and especially with Janis Joplin drinking, cursing like a banshee, you know, and owners of the places ready to turn the lights out, you know, if you don't calm this down. I mean, but it's all about those people that are out in front of you.
If they're enjoying it, let it go.
Right, you've got to get a handle on them.
Yeah.
You know? And whatever you have, and whatever it takes to do that, whether, you know, it's in fun, you know, or seriousness, you know, that's your responsibility. You're an entertainer. That's the whole thing. It comes down to more than just being a performer. So you've got to be an entertainer. When you get on a stage, I don't care, you know, what level you are. I'll commend anybody who gets on a stage because that takes a lot of ability and just a lot inside of yourself to get and walk on there, to do something, and then to execute on top of it, you know. But as you get into this life or this business, you want to do it right. You have to understand that there's a lot of incidentals that go with being a performer.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I even personally learned just hanging out with Steve and Dave and just kind of helping out there. There was a good year that I just hung out with them, went to every show and just kind of and just helped break down, set up, and it's an awesome.
Never neglect your public.
It's an awesome lifestyle. I mean, not awesome lifestyle, but it's a very interesting thing to go. Like I only did it for a short period of time, but I'm super happy I did it because I learned so much cool things and met cool people and networked, and it was awesome. It was fun, and I went up and stood on stage and tried to sing, and it was horrible. I did horrible, but it was terrifying. I was scared.
But you had a great time, though, right?
I did. I had a blast, but it's such a cool, like everybody. It just to feel like a rock star for a night is a cool feeling, you know, and then going up and seeing other bands and getting that camaraderie. It's just a really cool experience. Yeah. So it's something music to me is just powerful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Big time.
So I want to do one last thing here. I want to do like a quick top 5. We're going to do a few topics and do a quick top 5. So as a drummer, I want you to give me your top 5 drummers. If you had to make like your top 5 or your Mount Rushmore, who would your drummers be?
I'll go back it again. Top 5, I will put who will I put up on top of there? I would say John Bonham. Boom. Don Brewer, Grand Funk Railroad. As I said before, Ian Pace. I will put Ringo Starr. And I would also say Liberty DeVito, because I always enjoyed listening to his work, you know, with Billy Joel and outside of Billy Joel. There's so many different people, there's studio players, Steve Gadd, all these different people, you know, but for me, looking back of the ones that influenced me, and there was reason because of what technology we had that was limited. I couldn't go out and see a concert. I was too young, maybe, or something like that. I remember my concerts were watching in concert with Don Kirshner, a rock concert, all that kind of stuff like that on TV. That was the closest I would get. So you had to imagine what it was like. Seeing all these acts and stuff like that. And we had a place in Hazleton called St. Joe's Gym. And that's where we get some of the national acts up there. I saw the Raspberries there as a kid and stuff like that, But as far as drummers, there's a lot of local drummers too. On the regional perspective, one very much in the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton area. His name was Rick Richards. He played with a group called the Glass Prism, and they had 2 albums out on RCA called Poet the Glass Prism, which was music set to the poems of Edgar Allan Poe, which was pretty cool.
Oh wow!
Yeah, their bass player Augie Cristiano had wrote a lot of music, and Tom Verano, the guitar player. And a matter of fact, it's like a big cult album now.
Yeah, you actually got to see them play that live.
Oh, it was, we got to see a reunion tour like 40 years later, But Rick Richards was great because he took a lot of these drummers, which I'm, stating, and Carmen Appice, please, I got to get him in there, man. He was doing things that nobody else was doing at all. Showmanship. He came like from the Gene Krupa school. He would take and choke the cymbal with his arm. It was crazy stuff. But effective. But there were so many great players that kind of paved the way. Definitely. And going back to the old school. The big bands and all that, and Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich and that. God bless him. Louis Bellson.
Yeah. So since you're going to be on the road playing some bass, give us your 5 bass players. Influential bass players.
Bass players. That's tough. Because being a guitarist, you always kind of
You want to go guitarist instead of bass players?
I'll try some. I'll do bass. So, top 5 bass players. Well, Geddy Lee would definitely be up there for me. God, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh yeah, so God, what's shit.
You can go by band if you want.
Well, what the hell's his name with Hendrix?
Noel Redding.
Noel Redding. It's huge. He was huge, and then God, I'm so terrible with names right now.
I'm horrible with names.
Carol Kay.
Oh,
Carol Kay's huge.
One of the unsung heroes of all time.
Yeah.
Carol Kay. Oh, who else played with the Wrecking Crew? It was huge.
And Joe Osborne, matter of fact, Hal Blaine was the drummer for all those sessions. He just passed away like in the last week or so. Joe Osborne, great bass player. Every song you heard, the Grassroots, Monkeys, different stuff. It was every record on the top 40. You say, boy, I like that bass player. I like that bass player. They're all the same guy.
Yeah.
What do you feel about this is a not newer, but a drummer that's probably I would say he's probably top 5 in the world right now as a drummer, Travis Barker.
Yeah, I love Travis.
Yeah, everything I've heard of him, I dig it too.
He'll really play any genre. You could put him on just playing drums over a rap beat or heavy metal or anything. He's just amazing.
Being a little pop punk kid, I
love all that stuff too. That pop punk era for me, that high school era.
It's absolutely.
That's. I have one more question, then I'll turn it over to Nikolai. Bands in the area now that are catching your eye that you enjoy going to, who are some guys? If you had to put your recommendation out right now, that it's the people you have to go see.
Well, so I mean, my top favorite in the area, Look Alive, huge, Montungo.
I've heard a lot about them. I've yet to hear them.
They used to be Strength and Allies. They changed their name. Awesome pop punk band. Some of my best friends love those guys. They're awesome, just too good. And people like my buddy Timmy Mangle, he does Churches and Trains. His stuff's awesome. Tyler Troutman with Condition Oakland. Tyler's been grinding for years and years, just in the DIY scene, touring, doing folk punk stuff like that. Condition Oakland, definitely on that. Bob Ellis, he goes out and does Beelzebub and the Screaming Demons. Another awesome dude. There's so many people in this area that are super close friends of mine. My buddies Chris and Tyler and Ryan with a Gas Station right now.
Yeah.
We
just did Mike Danger interview.
Yeah. So I mean, there's so many of my friends right now that are just absolutely killing it, and they're all traveling and playing, and they're being super kind of successful in the area and starting to spread out. So it's really, really awesome to see.
You know who's impressed me the most? I don't get the chance to go out and see a lot of groups because I'm playing on the weekends if I'm not. So we're in the moment at home. Light Up the Moon.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I had seen them on the what was the name of the show we talked about?
Punk
yeah, exactly. Yeah, with Adrenaline and
Terry's actually going to be recording soon.
Yeah, Terry's unbelievable.
Light Up the Moon. I'll tell you what. I go back to the old school thing again. About the package having everything in one shell besides the music presentation, all this stuff. And I know Dave Danishevsky for many years. Through all the groups he's worked with, Keith and different people and stuff like that. And of course Rob and all. But it was the first time I saw the act, and I was just blown away, man. Because the material was ear candy, very pop stuff. You know, they had the people in their hand. Joe's an excellent, I forget Joe's last name, Akor or something like that. He's an excellent front man. Excellent front man. My type of front man, you know.
Yeah.
You use that stage. You got a 40-foot stage. Don't stand there.
Yeah.
Run it, you know.
Exactly.
Joe's very, very good at communicating. He knows his audience. He knows how to get them. He knows how to get them singing. Knows how to get them in control. You know.
Yeah, they're doing the right material.
They're doing exactly. So I have to say, you know, that I would, you know, very ecstatic, and it's nice to see acts like that. It's very refreshing to me, you know. And I sent Robin a PM on Facebook just to commend him and you know, congratulate
I really hope they do more of those, and just have like more showcases in the area, and just like Saturday night at Goodfellas where you have bands, just like throw like 5 or 6 bands or 4 or 5 bands up there and just let them go at it, like just have fun. Because you just don't. Because a lot of those bands, they want to see each other, but the same thing is they work every Saturday night. But it was a good time, and I mean,
Rob's definitely doing some good things down there too.
I'm excited for it. Yeah,
I know he just had Bark at the Moon down there, the Aussie tribute, which is
they just did that impromptu Fate's Got a Driver show, which was a blast. Really good time with Randy. I'm really excited for what Rob's doing there, because as someone who enjoys to go see live music, it's something we need in the area. You know, and I can't wait for it to kind of just get steam. And if you are in the area and you want to go see more live music, just go do it. I know we talked about it on a previous show where someone walks in and says, "Oh, $5 cover," and they walk out. Pay that $5 cover. Like, I'm telling you, these people in this area are super talented. They're working their ass off, and then a big thing too is like I seen Crowbot, Faith in Exile, and Cyanide for $3 at Goodfellas. $3, and all 3 of those bands were stellar, and they are phenomenal. It's just, because there's going to be a time where maybe these bands aren't going to be a $5 cover. You know what I mean? Like, now you're going to go see Crowbot, and you're like, oh, how come you guys don't come back? You know, it's
a good point. Good point, Tony, because last week we were out of the area with Three's a Crowd, you know, and we've been knocking on wood, you know, for the whole year. We're playing every weekend. We can't say enough for the support we've had at Schuylkill County. We love it, but it's nice to leave your area once in a while, just to, you know, to test the water, see what's going on.
Yeah.
And we played in Allentown. We knocked it out. People loved us. We walked out. Repeat gigs, okay? But the point of it is that in talking to the bar manager and, you know, having a little rapport and afterwards and, you know, connecting, she said to me, "Eddie, we love live entertainment. She said, that's, you know, our thing. We feel we need that, you know." And I think the more that people understand that and support that, you're going to have live entertainment, you know. And there's nothing like a live band, let's face it, man.
No, I love it. If I can go in and see anyone, it doesn't even, any live music. It could be a guy playing acoustic. It could be anything. You could be playing the Spoons. I don't care. I'd rather that over a jukebox. I need 808.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it doesn't even have to technically be music that I'm into, but I enjoy it.
There's so many good bands in the area too. Any weekend around here now, you can go. What was it last weekend and the weekend before, going to see Bad Maggie?
Yeah,
you know.
I've heard a lot about them. I haven't had a chance to see them.
They're such good guys too.
Great dudes, great band. Like, and that's the thing. Like, people complain about going out to spend a $5 cover or something like that, but you're spending $35 a month on a gym membership that you're not going to use. You know, why not spend a couple a couple bucks and go see your friends do something they like to do and support them.
And the cool thing too is, so even if you don't go to a show, or you go to a show and they don't have that $5 cover, pick up merch.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna give you the plug real quick. Look Alive. Yep. You walked in, I think it was $30 for their merch stand, and it was one of everything at their table. And obviously, because they're cool, they're gonna they'll throw a handful of stickers at your thing. They're gonna throw a handful of buttons at your thing. Then you get a T-shirt, and then you get a beer koozie, like for $30. And you know, and it came with a cool bag. Like it was like help out the bands. Like, buy that merch. I love wearing it. You know what I mean? Like, speaking of that, I'll show you something before you leave. I have an old original Crowbot shirt.
Oh, really?
I have the yellow crow with its mouth open, and it's saying
awesome. It's funny. I was leaving a show down at Festival Pier in Philly the one day. I forget who we went to see. Actually, I think we were leaving Self-Help Fest, or whatever, and we were walking out. It's just a mob like people, walking down the street and stuff, and found a guy wearing that same shirt.
Really?
And I was like, no shit. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, there's some of my really good friends in that band. He's like, that's awesome. They're one of my favorite bands.
I wore my Crowbot shirt out to Vegas, and this guy stopped me. He's like,
oh jeez,
what do you know about Crowbot? I was like, well, I know they're from my town. And he goes, I'm from Pennsylvania. He goes, I love that. And he was from Texas. And I guess when Bishop used to live down there and they made that second album, they were huge in Texas. And he was from Texas, went to Vegas, seen me wearing my Supernatural shirt, and he was just like, Crowbot. And I was like, yeah. And I think I took a picture. I was like, yo, I'm going to tag you in this picture with Brandon and Bishop because I'm friends with them, and he was like, "That's all." Like, it made his night, but it's really cool to see that camaraderie.
Awesome.
Or even like Steel Panther. Steel Panther did that DVD where it's like live in Lexi's mom's garage, and there's like they do a skit during it where this guy's banging on the garage to get in, but Steel Panther would only let girls in, and he's wearing a Crowbot shirt.
Oh, that's funny.
In the DVD, yeah,
that's super funny. I went upstairs. I was at my parents' house. I was going to print off tickets or something. The one day I went to use my dad's computer. I saw something Supernatural artwork as his background. I'm like, get the hell out of here.
Somehow it ended up as on my desktop by a mistake, and I'm like, I'll leave it there, okay, leave it go.
His art is amazing.
Crowbot's
Bishop's art is ridiculous.
And the funny thing is, some people are like, oh, Bishop's art's really cool, and sometimes it's actually Kira's.
That's fine. I'm actually going to pick her up from the airport.
Really?
In a little bit, yeah.
Oh, she's a sweetheart too.
Pick her at the airport.
But so a lot of cool stuff. Nikolai, what do you got for us, question-wise?
So I've heard a lot of awesome stories. I don't know a whole lot about music, so it's always good for me to listen to like just random stories about like you guys on the road and stuff. But if you could go back to the very beginning when you first started music and you were able to tell yourself all of these stories, would you believe that that's what was going to happen to you?
Absolutely not.
Never in a million years.
Nope.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Who was some of your favorite bands to play with so far?
That I played with?
I know you said the Drifters in there a couple of times.
The Drifters, I would have to say that definitely, it's right on the top because it gave me a lot of depth in so many ways, taught me so many things. I remember, just sharing how extensive of the training, of being on the road, stuff like that. When I first went with the Drifters, we were getting tuxes. We were the backup band. We were getting one tux. And we were playing how many nights a week? I used to have to go in my hotel room, hang out my coat, take my shirt, put it in the sink, wring it out, put it on top of the air conditioner to dry out for the next show, kind of thing like that. But seriously, it taught me a lot of things. Number one, when I went to, we got the tux, and then, well, you need shoes, Eddie, you gotta go get some shoes. So I went and got patent leathers, okay, because I know I'm on stage, I'm playing with a show band, I gotta look good. The rest of my guys didn't do that type of thing. So we got called in for a meeting, and Marvin, the leader of the Drifters at the time, said, hey guys, he says, we need some shoes. He says, Terry over to get rid of those police shoes, Dave get rid of those cowboy boots, and Schroeder on the keyboard, you get rid of those earth shoes. You get a pair of shoes like my man here, So it taught me a lot of things about class, about style. So that, definitely were there. It said Sheriff Jones, that was also an eye-opener, being in a good rock and roll band, with good guys, Jeff Calord, as I mentioned before, Bill Krause on bass, Kim Sherman, who I worked with later in a number of groups. But we played a lot more of the, I guess you call level B rooms, Media 5 circuit, that kind of stuff like that. So it was a different spectrum for me everywhere along the line. The golden age of rock and roll naturally put me in with four singers in a very different perspective. I wanted to play in a trio, so I worked with Jimmy Duranis and Billy Lindemuth and the Fat Cats. That was cool, because it was acoustic trio. I wanted to do that. Just kind of put me in different idioms of music that I wanted to perceive and say I did this, I did that, and do it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now that you say it, so if you had to pick something besides music to do, would that even be possible for you guys? Like, if there was always something you're like, oh, I would maybe like to try this direction if I could go and do it.
Yeah, I do have. For me, I would like to pursue a more journalistic aspect as a writer.
Okay.
Yeah, I find a lot of comfort in that. I've written a number of a lot of my things are music, but I would like to do more with my life experiences. There's so many things I want to do. There's a magazine that has been, it's been on my eye for a while, called Reminisce, and it's a national magazine, read everywhere, and it's about like a baby boomer magazine. Stories from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. People talk about their life experiences, and I feel that, boy, I could delve right into that. You know, I'm contemplating doing a book as well.
Yeah,
that's in my backyard. You know, right now, it's the time factor of saying, I've got to devote so much time every day to go do this. Everything's in my head. There's stuff that I haven't even talked to you guys even about that would blow your mind. You know, so many things in my life. I almost ended up in the movie Cleopatra back with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. I almost had a screen test for that in 1962. I almost ended up on the TV show What's My Line. So many different things that came through my life.
Vegas?
Pardon?
You almost ended up in Vegas recently?
That's a more recent story. Yeah. But there were so many different wonderful things that came through that that I haven't even scratched the surface on. But I feel, and I've been told by many people, you know, that you can make an excellent book, you know, doing this, you know, incorporate that with the music and the people I've met, because I've been very fortunate over the years to work with, gosh, maybe hundreds of the great rock and rollers from yesterday. Matter of fact, I'm performing this Wednesday in Philadelphia. I'm singing with Danny and the Juniors, Jimmy Clanton, Kenny Jeremiah from the Soul Survivors, recorded Expressway to Your Heart, you know. So these are guys, these are my icons, these are mentors, these are guys I grew up with. Here I'm going to be on stage singing with them, you know, doing my thing, you know. But I would like to pursue a more, you know, lucrative career as a writer, you know. And I think, you know, there would be a lot of you know, creativity in a lot of directions.
Yeah,
that's cool.
What about you?
That's
professional wrestler.
It's on my list for sure. That is definitely on my list.
That's always been on
I'm a nerd. Yeah, wrestling would definitely be like something in the business. Like, I mean, being 27, I'm not going to, you know, try my hand in some kind of independent or anything like that. But like, definitely, like, I always loved like the production side of like, you know, bigger like WWE, WCW, ECW, like all the production stuff with that was always crazy to me. Just watching the lights and everything, and you know, the screens, and I'll look at all the trussing and stuff up, and I'm just like, oh shit, that's crazy. Like, and now like being in a production business and stuff like that, like I get more of what goes on in that, and it's even more appealing to me. And I don't know, if I wasn't doing something like that, I'd probably, like, I always loved cooking too. I haven't done so much of it in the past couple of years, but I
always said it makes me a great wife.
I tell you what, like how you were talking about journalism and stuff, one of my favorite things is the movie Detroit Rock City, where a guy just kind of documents his life just hanging out with somebody and just like a band, and that's something that always appealed to me. Like, obviously I the way my bills are now, there's no way I would be able to disappear and go with a band for 6 months, but I would just love to just sit on that process and document it. You know what I mean? I think that'd be really, really cool to just kind of, I mean, I kind of did it for a little bit, but it was only like a weekend stint with the Voids Upstairs, but like on a bigger scale, it'd just be really fun to do that. That would be like a go-to for me. I would like to do.
That'd be awesome. That'd be really cool.
Well,
we'll make it happen.
Anything? You got anything else?
Yeah. It's not a question, but I really like how you talked about, because music's always changing and stuff, having those opportunities to learn the different styles and stuff and not actually be stuck in one thing. I think that's super valuable, like with anything necessarily. Like, I do a lot of film stuff, so having and being able to know like what it's like to be a director or somebody who's working lights or sound or any of that kind of stuff, instead of being an actor saying, oh, it needs to be this way or something, and have no clue how any of the other things work.
It definitely helps to be very versatile.
Yeah, you've got to be open.
Right.
I think, and that's another thing with like younger kids. I feel like a lot of the younger kids right now, like, you know, a lot of this, like the top 40s pop stuff, and it's pushed down a lot of kids' throats because it's everything they hear all the time. So they think they're forced to like that, or, you know, they might be into, you know, heavier music or, you know, rock and metal and stuff, but they're kind of like afraid to let that show because they don't want their friends to think that they're weird because they don't listen to, you know, Jay-Z or whoever else is popular now, you know, because I don't like the new DJ Khaled song with Drake or whatever, and I like, you know, metal and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of kids feel like they'll get shunned or they won't be accepted.
All the music that I liked that I didn't want to tell people I liked is all the stuff that like everyone's covering, but all the cover bands in this area now.
Yeah.
like
growing up,
Blink-182, like come on, bro.
Yeah. like
My Chemical Romance. Were you an emo kid?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, growing up, like I was more into like the metal scene and stuff. I was going to shows. Yeah. Like my buddy Trevor and I were at a show every weekend. It doesn't like always in Philly or whatever. And say my buddy Jared, we would go to shows constantly in New York or wherever, and like it's just like you know, I was always like a metal kid, but then like I grew up on doo-wop, so I love doo-wop. Like I love this, you know, 50s, 60s, 70s stuff, and I'm like Amy Winehouse is like my favorite artist of all time. Like, you know, like it's stuff like that. Like you got to open up to different things. Like
that video where she came out of rehab and she felt like where it was at the peak of her drug addiction, and she felt like she wasn't worth anything and she had no ability and no talent, and they had her record sitting on a couch singing Valerie. Every time I see that on the internet, I will always
she was unique, and it's very rare in our business when we get a talent like that comes along, you know. And I had only heard Amy Winehouse because of my son Chris. He invited me over for dinner one night with his
Chris gal. Chris is the main reason I listen to most of the stuff I do listen to. Actually,
Amy Winehouse. I had no idea who it was. Now there was a couple of samples that she had taken. They had taken a track from one of the Motown things from Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. I forget which song it was. But I heard a couple. But I heard all this old, not I'd say old school, but really like going back to the what we call the torch singers in the 1930s, like Billie Holiday and stuff like that. I'm hearing all this in this woman, you know, and I had no idea who it was. And he played it to the whole dinner. I said, Chris, you got to make me a CD of this, you know. So that's how I got turned on the, you know, secondhand, you know, from my son Chris, you know, and I was just blown away. And then doing, you know, more research on her and watching videos and the documentary. I'd seen that a few months ago. Matter of fact, late. And that just blew me away on a Sunday afternoon, sitting back and watching that. But there you go again, 27 years old. The 27 Club, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain. It's sad. It really is, man.
I just went back and rewatched the unsolved Tupac and Biggie thing.
Oh yeah.
And to think that they were kids. They were kids. They're 24 years old. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Just to close out here, I just want to, if it's too deep, I'm sorry, but like, because this is something, obviously it's on the internet, it's here forever, and you have, you know, grandkids and maybe you know, more on the way maybe one day. But if you had any advice that you would give, you know, your family or something later on down the road, just what would it be to your the rest of your family or upcoming grandkids or anything like that?
I'd say for us that music is a bond. It brings people together, it brings people happiness, and it's something you can share. And we have done that, you know, all these years. Like I said, I'll be 62 years old this summer, and I am so proud of more than what I have accomplished in my career is to watch everything has gone around me. And as you get older, guys, the years go quicker. Believe me, the last 10 years of my life have been the quickest. And I've started to savor more each day because, you know, this is time, you know. That's why I said, you know, I could be playing every weekend if I want to, but there's times when I'd rather not, you know. I'd rather maybe go somewhere with my kids, do something with the grandkids, watch TV, stay home with my wife, little huggy, you know. But seriously, you know, just remember that music is what it's kept us together to keep everyone else together too.
Yeah. There's a really cool thing I seen. It's this guy. He suffers from dementia and Alzheimer's, and they're using music therapy to try to combat possible Alzheimer's and see
the trigger.
And he sits in a chair. It's an elderly black gentleman, and he sits in a chair and he's completely lethargic. He has no emotion. He just sits there. His mouth's hung open. He has no personality. Like he has no soul. He's like a shell of a man. I mean, they put earbuds on him and they play music from the 40s and 50s, and he immediately sits up. His eyes get big. He starts moving his shoulders. He starts singing lyrics. This guy doesn't even know his own name, doesn't know his family, but the music triggers those memories.
Right. And look at Glenn Campbell, right to his leaving the world, Alzheimer's, the whole bit. But the music is what kept him going all the way.
Yeah.
You know, and his kids and his family.
Yeah.
Same kind of scenario.
Such a powerful thing.
It is.
It's super powerful, and it's not just it's a powerful thing you create. You know, it's unbelievable. But I really want to thank you guys for coming in and sitting down and doing this. And
thanks for having us.
And write that book. Please write that book. And
I think it's forthcoming.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have you back on to promote it too.
Thank you.
But like I said, if you're listening, go follow these guys on social media. Eddie's stories are amazing. Eddie's going to be the other EC3 is going to be on the road. I'm never going to call. You're going to be EC3 forever.
I can't wait to get a shirt.
EC3. Eddie will be on the road with Crowbot. Super looking forward to that. And like I said, thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us. And appreciate it.
And tune in and see more stuff that's coming this way, and follow them on social media and see what they're up to, because they're awesome. And support your local music and give that them love, because it's important to show your expression, and music is very powerful, and show that love. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is Interviews with Everyday People. We'll see you next time.